The monitor started screaming before I even felt my body convulse. I woke up in my hospital room to chaos. Nurses running, alarms blaring. My husband standing in the corner, phone in hand, face white as a ghost. I was 7 months pregnant, just there for routine diabetes monitoring. Everything had been fine 2 hours ago. Then the doctor said something that made my blood run cold. Someone added insulin to your IV, and a lot of insulin. If you'd been alone another 30 minutes, you wouldn't have woken up. Security pulled up the footage. A blonde woman in scrubs, blue pharmaceutical badge, entering my room at 2:47 a.m., standing over my IV for 6 minutes. My husband went pale when he saw her face. "That's Vanessa," he whispered. "She's, we've been," his mistress. His mistress had tried to poison me, tried to kill me and my unborn baby. But that's not even the worst part. When police checked my medical records, they found something horrifying. My own husband had been giving her information. Room number, when I'd be alone, what medications I was on. He'd basically handed me over to be murdered. This is the story of how I survived attempted murder by my husband's mistress, discovered a conspiracy that went deeper than I ever imagined, and fought back with everything I had. Because when someone tries to kill you in your hospital bed, you have two choices: give up or become someone they never saw coming. I chose to fight, and what happened next changed everything. Stay with me. This story gets darker before it gets better. But I promise you, it's worth it. The monitor started screaming before Grace even felt her body convulse. Sharp, piercing, the kind of alarm that brings nurses running. Grace Morrison's eyes snapped open to chaos. Fluorescent lights too bright, voices overlapping, hands on her arms, her belly, the baby. "Grace, can you hear me?" A nurse leaned over her. Not Marlene, someone else. "You had a seizure." "Stay still." Seizure. The word didn't make sense. Grace was 7 months pregnant. She'd been admitted to Grace Memorial Hospital 3 days ago for routine gestational diabetes monitoring. Everything had been fine. Perfect even. Her blood sugar levels were stable. The baby's heartbeat strong. This wasn't supposed to happen. Grace's hand moved to her belly, pressing, searching. The baby kicked back, hard, insistent, still there, still alive. "The baby?" Grace's voice came out rough. Her throat hurt. "Heartbeat is strong," the nurse said. She was young, maybe 25, dark hair pulled back. Name tag read Jennifer. 142 beats per minute. Grace did what every woman does in medical crisis. She counted her baby's kicks. 1, 2, 3, each movement a promise. Still there, still fighting, still alive. More people crowded into the room. Dr. Rebecca Mitchell pushed through. Grace's OBGYN, 48 years old, competent, calm even in crisis. She'd delivered hundreds of babies. Grace trusted her. "Grace, I need you to focus on me," Dr. Mitchell said. Her hands were already examining, checking. "Can you tell me what you remember before the seizure?" Grace tried to think. Her mind felt foggy, slow, like swimming through honey. "I was sleeping. I woke up, felt strange, then nothing." "What kind of strange?" "Dizzy, shaky, cold." Mitchell's face tightened, just slightly, enough for Grace to notice. After 10 years as a pediatric nurse, Grace knew that look. Something was wrong. Very wrong. "I'm ordering a full blood panel, immediate." Mitchell turned to Jennifer. "Get me her IV bag." "The one that was just running, bag it, label it, and then I want it tested." "IV bag." Grace's eyes moved to the pole beside her bed. A fresh bag hung there, clear fluid dripping steadily through the line into her arm. But there should have been another bag, the one that had been running while she slept. "Why do you want the IV bag tested?" Grace asked. Dr. Mitchell didn't answer right away. She was looking at Grace's chart, frowning. "Your blood sugar levels were perfect at midnight. That was 2 hours ago. There's no reason you should have seized. Unless something changed, unless something was added, unless someone had tampered with the IV." The thought hit Grace like ice water. No, that was crazy. This was a hospital. There were protocols, security, cameras, but Dr. Mitchell had ordered the IV bag tested, which meant she suspected something too. Grace's husband Derek stood in the corner of the room. She hadn't noticed him until now. He was 35, tall, dark hair starting to gray at the temples, hospital administrator. He worked here at Grace Memorial, had worked here for 7 years. He wasn't rushing to her side. He wasn't asking questions. He was just standing there, phone in his hand, face white, staring at her like he'd seen a ghost. Derek? Grace's voice came out weak. He blinked, looked at her, put the phone in his pocket. Grace, thank God you're okay. He moved to the bed, slowly, like he wasn't sure he should. He took her hand. His palm was dry, steady, not sweating, not shaking, just steady. Grace looked at his hands, then at his face, searching for something. She didn't know what. Fear, relief, guilt. His expression was blank, carefully blank. What happened? He asked. I don't know, Grace said. I was sleeping. Then the alarms. Derek nodded, squeezed her hand once, let go, stepped back. He looked at Dr. Mitchell. Is the baby okay? For now, we're running tests. And Grace? We'll know more soon. The door burst open. Security, 2 officers in Navy uniforms. Behind them, Dr. Marcus Webb, hospital security chief, 52 years old, former FBI. Grace had met him twice at hospital functions. He was serious, professional, not the kind of man who showed up for routine medical emergencies. Dr. Mitchell, he said, I need to see the eye bag. Jennifer held it up, already bagged in clear plastic. Evidence bag, that's what it looked like evidence. Dr. Webb took it carefully, held it up to the light. This will go to our private lab. Results in 2 hours. 2 hours? Derek said. That's fast. It's necessary. Dr. Webb's eyes moved to Derek, held there. Just a moment too long. Mr. Morrison, I'll need to speak with you. About what? Standard protocol. Your wife had a medical emergency. We're investigating all possibilities. Investigating what? Dr. Webb didn't answer. He turned to Grace. Mrs. Morrison, I know this is difficult, but I need you to think carefully. Before the seizure, did anyone come into your room? Grace closed her eyes, tried to remember. The room had been dark. She'd been drifting in and out of sleep. The gestational diabetes made her tired. So tired. But yes, someone had come in. She remembered now. Movement, footsteps, quiet, careful. Someone adjusted my IV, Grace said slowly. I woke up just for a second, saw someone in scrubs, blonde ponytail, blue badge. Grace opened her eyes, looked at Dr. Webb. It wasn't my regular nurse. My regular nurse is Marlene Torres. She has black hair. The room went absolutely silent. Dr. Webb's expression didn't change, but something shifted behind his eyes. What time was this? I don't know. I fell back asleep, maybe an hour ago, maybe 2. Dr. Webb nodded, made a note. Blonde ponytail, blue badge. Do you remember anything else? Grace tried to think, but the image was already fading, like a dream slipping away. She was tall, thin. That's all I remember. Thank you, Mrs. Morrison. Dr. Webb turned to the security officers. Pull all camera footage from this wing. Last 3 hours. Focus on room 316. I want every person who entered or approached this door. The officers left immediately. Dr. Webb followed. He paused at the door, looked back at Derek. Mr. Morrison, my office, 20 minutes. Then he was gone. Grace looked at Derek, really looked at him. He was staring at the door where Dr. Webb had disappeared. His jaw was tight, his hands clenched at his sides. Derek? He turned to her, that blank expression back in place. I should call my parents, let them know what happened. Your parents? They'll want to know you're okay. Raymond and Helen Morrison, Derek's parents. Grace had met them exactly 4 times in 3 years of marriage. Raymond was a billionaire, private equity, old money, intimidating in the way that people with that much wealth always are. Helen was cold, polished, the kind of woman who made Grace feel small without saying a word. And they didn't like Grace. That much had been clear from the beginning. She wasn't from their world, wasn't from old money. She was a nurse from a middle-class family in Ohio, not suitable for their son. They don't need to know, Grace said. I'm fine. The baby's fine. They should know. Derek, it's 3 in the morning. They won't mind. He already had his phone out, already dialing. He walked to the corner of the room, spoke quietly. Grace couldn't hear the words, just the low murmur of his voice. Dr. Mitchell returned to Grace's bedside. How are you feeling? Confused, tired, scared. That's normal. Grace, I need to be honest with you. Something isn't right. Your blood sugar levels shouldn't have dropped like that. Not with the medication we have you on. Not with the monitoring we're doing. What are you saying? I'm saying we need to find out what caused the seizure, and we need to make sure it doesn't happen again. Grace's hand went to her belly again. The baby kicked. Strong, healthy, unaware of the danger, unaware that something or someone had tried to hurt them both. Someone added something to my IV, Grace said. It wasn't a question. She knew. In her bones, she knew. Dr. Mitchell hesitated. We don't know that yet. But you suspect it. I suspect we need more information. Grace looked at Derek again. He was still on the phone, still speaking quietly. His back to her. Always his back to her. For months now, he'd been turning away, coming home late, leaving early, distant, distracted. She'd told herself it was work stress. He was up for a promotion, more responsibilities, longer hours. But what if it wasn't work stress? What if it was something else? What if he'd been keeping secrets? What if those secrets had followed him here, into her hospital room, into her IV line? The thought was insane, but Grace couldn't shake it. She touched her hospital wristband, the way every patient does, checking it's still there, checking she's still real, still alive. Grace Morrison, date of birth, medical record number, gestational diabetes, 7 months pregnant. All the facts of her life reduced to plastic and ink. Derek ended his call, came back to the bed. My father is coming. He'll be here within the hour. Derek, it's the middle of the night. He wants to help. Help how? He has resources, connections. If something happened to you, he'll make sure we find out what. Grace wanted to argue, to say they didn't need Raymond Morrison's help, that the hospital would handle it, that everything would be fine. But she was too tired, too scared. And despite everything, despite the distance and the coldness, Raymond Morrison was a man who got things done. If someone had hurt her, if someone had tried to hurt the baby, she wanted them caught. She wanted them punished, even if it meant accepting help from a man who'd never wanted her in his family. Okay, Grace said quietly. Okay. Dr. Mitchell left to check on the test results. The nurses finished their observations and moved to other patients. The room grew quiet, just Grace and Derek, the soft beep of the fetal monitor, the steady drip of the new IV. Grace closed her eyes, not sleeping, just thinking, trying to remember. The blonde woman, the blue badge, something about it nagged at her. Blue badges. Those were for pharmaceutical representatives, not nurses, not doctors. Pharmaceutical reps weren't supposed to be in patient rooms, not alone, not unsupervised. So why had one been in Grace's room at 3 in the morning? Why had she been touching the IV, and why did Derek look so terrified when Dr. Webb mentioned security footage? Grace's mind spun. Too many questions, not enough answers. The baby kicked again, harder this time, insistent, demanding attention. I know, baby, Grace whispered. I know you're scared. Me too. She thought about calling Marlene, her best friend since nursing school, the one person who always told her the truth, even when it hurt, especially when it hurt. But it was 3 in the morning. Marlene was working the ER tonight, double shift. She'd see her in the morning. They'd talk then. Grace's phone buzzed on the bedside table. Text message from a number she didn't recognize. She picked it up, read the message. Her blood went cold. You should have stayed home. Raymond Morrison arrived 53 minutes after Derek's call. Grace heard him before she saw him. His voice in the hallway, deep, authoritative, the kind of voice that expected to be obeyed. Nurses stepped aside, security straightened. Even Dr. Webb's posture changed. Money did that. Power did that. Raymond walked into the room like he owned it. 64 years old, silver hair, expensive suit despite the early hour. He looked exactly like what he was, A man worth $3.7 billion who didn't waste time on pleasantries. He walked past Derek without a word, went straight to Grace's bedside, looked down at her. His face was unreadable. Grace had never been able to tell what Raymond Morrison was thinking. She suspected that was intentional. "Tell me everything," he said. "Not how are you feeling, not is the baby okay, just tell me everything." So Grace did. The seizure, the wrong nurse, the blonde ponytail, the blue badge, the text message. She showed him her phone. He read it without expression, handed it back. "Give that to Dr. Webb. It's evidence." Evidence of what? Attempted harm, possibly attempted murder. The word hung in the air like a bump murder. No one had said it out loud until now. Grace felt sick. Raymond turned to Derek. "Where were you when this happened?" "At home, sleeping. Grace called me after the seizure. I came right away." "You were at home. You're sure?" "Of course I'm sure. And you can prove that." Derek's face flushed red. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm not suggesting anything. I'm asking questions. If someone tried to hurt Grace, we need to eliminate all possibilities, including you." "I'm her husband." "Exactly, which makes you a person of interest." Grace watched the exchange, father and son. The tension between them was always there. Raymond had never thought Derek was ambitious enough, tough enough, smart enough. Derek resented it, tried to prove himself, failed. The cycle repeated endlessly. But right now, Grace didn't care about their issues. She cared about the question Raymond had asked. "Where were you?" Because Grace had called Derek after the seizure. But how long had it taken him to answer? How long had it taken him to get to the hospital? She tried to remember. Everything was fuzzy. The seizure had scrambled her memories, but she thought it had been fast. Too fast maybe, like he'd already been awake, already been nearby, already been waiting for a call. Dr. Webb returned with Dr. Mitchell. They both looked grim. Dr. Webb carried a tablet, security footage. "Mr. Morrison, Mrs. Morrison, I need you to see something." He turned the tablet so they could see the screen. Black and white video, the hallway outside Grace's room. Timestamp read 2:47 a.m. A woman appeared on screen. Blonde ponytail, business attire, blue badge clipped to her jacket. She looked around, checked both directions, then entered Grace's room. The door closed behind her. She was in there for 6 minutes, Dr. Webb said. 6 minutes. That was a long time. Too long to just check an IV, too long to be innocent. The video continued. The woman emerged, looked around again, walked quickly down the hall, disappeared around the corner. Raymond leaned forward. "Can you zoom in on her face?" Dr. Webb tapped the screen. The image froze, enhanced. The woman's face filled the frame. She was young, late 20s, pretty in a sharp, polished way. High cheekbones, thin lips, cold eyes. Grace stared at the face. She didn't recognize her, didn't know her, had never seen her before. At least she didn't think so. But Derek had gone absolutely white. His hands gripped the bed rail so hard, his knuckles turned white. His breathing quickened. He knew her. Grace could see it in every line of his body. He knew exactly who this woman was. Raymond saw it too. "Derek, who is she?" Derek didn't answer, couldn't answer, just stared at the screen like he was watching his life implode. "Derek," Raymond's voice went hard. "Who is this woman?" "That's Vanessa Caldwell." Derek's voice came out barely above a whisper. "She's a pharmaceutical sales rep. She works with the hospital." "Do you know her personally?" The pause was too long. Derek looked at Grace, then at his father, then at the floor. His silence was its own answer. Grace's world tilted, not from medical trauma, from recognition, from understanding, the distant behavior, the late nights, the phone calls he'd take in another room, the smell of perfume that wasn't hers. "You're sleeping with her," Grace said. It wasn't a question. She knew. The way women always know. She'd known for months. She just hadn't wanted to believe it, hadn't wanted to face it, so she'd ignored the signs, made excuses, told herself everything was fine. But everything was not fine. Everything was falling apart. And the woman who just tried to poison her IV was Derek's mistress. Derek opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. No words came out. What could he say? The evidence was right there on the screen, undeniable, damning. Raymond's expression didn't change, but Grace saw his jaw tighten, the only sign of emotion he'd allow himself. How long? Dad, this isn't the time. How long have you been having an affair? 8 months. 8 months. Grace did the math automatically. 8 months ago was March. She'd gotten pregnant in February, 1 month before Derek started sleeping with someone else. 1 month before he decided his pregnant wife wasn't enough. The room filled with silence. The only sound was the fetal monitor. Steady heartbeat, her baby's heart. The one thing still pure in this moment. Grace counted the beats, 142 per minute. Perfect. Normal, while nothing else was. Marlene burst through the door, still in her ER scrubs, hair wild, face flushed from running. I just heard. Grace, are you okay? Grace had never been so grateful to see another human being in her life. Marlene Torres, her best friend since nursing school, the one who'd held her hand through anatomy exams and her father's funeral, in the miscarriage before this pregnancy. The one who always told the truth. Marlene took one look at Grace's face and knew. She always knew. She crossed to the bed, took Grace's hand, squeezed hard. What happened? Marlene asked. Grace told her. The seizure, the IV, the video, the affair. By the end, Marlene's face had gone hard. Dangerous. Grace had seen that look before. Usually right before Marlene destroyed someone verbally. She was 5 feet 2 inches of pure protective fury. You're telling me someone poisoned your IV, Marlene said slowly, carefully, like she was trying very hard not to explode. And that someone is sleeping with your husband. We don't know she poisoned it yet, Derek said quickly. We're waiting on test results. Marlene turned to look at him. You shut up. You don't get to talk right now. Derek's mouth snapped shut. Even Raymond looked slightly impressed. No one talked to Derek Morrison that way. No one except Marlene Torres. Grace, describe the woman you saw, Marlene said, the one who adjusted your IV. Blonde ponytail, blue badge, tall, thin. Blue badge. That's pharmaceutical reps. They're not supposed to be in patient rooms unsupervised, especially not at 3 in the morning. What was her badge number? I couldn't see it. I was half asleep. But you're sure it was blue? Yes, Marlene looked at Dr. Webb. Pharmaceutical reps have to sign in and out. They have to list every room they visit, every sample they deliver, every doctor they speak with. Check the logs. Already done. Vanessa Caldwell signed in at 6 p.m. yesterday. Signed out at 8 p.m. She shouldn't have been in the building at 3 a.m. Then how did she get in? We're investigating that now. Raymond's phone rang. He stepped away to answer. Grace watched him. His posture changed. His voice dropped. When he came back, his expression was different. Harder. Colder. The preliminary test results on the IV bag, he said. Someone added insulin, a significant amount. The words hit Grace like a physical blow. Insulin. She was diabetic. She was already on insulin for gestational diabetes. Additional insulin would cause hypoglycemic shock, seizures, coma, death. If she'd been alone for another 30 minutes, she would have died. The baby would have died. That's impossible, Derek said. His voice shook. This is a hospital. There are protocols, security. How could someone just add insulin to an IV? That's what we're going to find out, Raymond said. His eyes were cold, fixed on his son. Where were you when your wife was alone with her IV, Derek? I was at home. I already told you. Can anyone verify that? Derek's face went from white to red. You're seriously asking me for an alibi? I'm the victim here too. My wife was attacked. Your wife was attacked, Raymond agreed, by your mistress, which raises some very interesting questions, such as, did you know? Did you help her? Did you give her access? No, absolutely not. I would never. You've been lying to Grace for 8 months. Lying is clearly something you are comfortable with. Grace felt like she was watching the scene from very far away, like it was happening to someone else. This couldn't be her life. This couldn't be her husband. This couldn't be real. But it was real. The evidence was there. The insulin was there. The affair was there. All of it real. All of it happening. All of it destroying everything she'd thought she knew. "I'm not crazy," Grace said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. "I'm not crazy. Something has been wrong for weeks. I've been feeling off, dizzy, nauseous beyond normal pregnancy. Tired, so tired." I told Derek. He said it was normal third trimester symptoms. "When did the symptoms start?" Dr. Mitchell asked. Grace thought back. Tried to pinpoint the moment things changed. 3 weeks ago, maybe 4. Dr. Mitchell's face went grim. "I need to review all of Grace's medical records. Every test, every result, every visit. If someone's been tampering with her treatment, there will be evidence. And I need to speak with Vanessa Caldwell," Raymond said. He looked at Dr. Webb. "Do you know where she lives?" "I have her employment ball, address, phone number, emergency contact." "Good. Send that to my phone and send someone to bring her in for questioning." "Mr. Morrison, with all due respect, that's a police matter." "Then call the police, but make sure they understand the urgency. Someone tried to kill my daughter-in-law. I want answers. Now." Raymond pulled out his phone, made a call. His voice was low, but Grace heard pieces of it. "Patricia, Raymond Morrison, I need you at Grace Memorial, 3rd floor, room 316. I have an attempted murder on video." Patricia Brennan. Grace recognized the name. Detective. Raymond had connections with the police department, donations, fundraisers, the kind of connections that got phone calls answered at 4 in the morning. Derek stood abruptly. "I need air. This is too much." "Sit down," Raymond said. "You're not going anywhere." "You can't keep me here." "Yes, I can. You're a person of interest in an attempted murder investigation. If you leave this room, I'll have you arrested for obstruction of justice." Derek sat down. Hard. His face was ashen. He looked at Grace, opened his mouth, closed it. What could he say? "I'm sorry, I didn't know. I love you." All of it would be lies. Grace could see it in his eyes. Whatever he'd felt for her once, it was gone now. Had been gone for 8 months. Maybe longer. She'd been living with a ghost. A man who looked like her husband, but felt nothing for her. And now that ghost mistress had tried to kill her. Grace touched her hospital wristband again. Checking, making sure. Still real, still alive, still here. The baby kicked. Grace counted. 1, 2, 3, 4. Still fighting, still strong. That's what mattered. Not Derek, not the affair, not the betrayal, just the baby, just survival. Raymond made 3 more calls. Private investigators, lawyers, his own security team. Within 10 minutes, he'd mobilized an army. Money did that. Power did that. Marlene sat beside Grace, held her hand, didn't say anything, just stayed. That's what real love looked like. Not the grand gestures or the expensive gifts, just showing up, just staying, just being there in the dark. "Thank you," Grace whispered. Marlene squeezed her hand tighter. "Is Dr. Mitchell returned with more test results. "Grace, your blood work shows your insulin levels were dangerously high, far higher than they should have been with your prescribed medication. Someone definitely added insulin to your IV. How much?" "Enough to kill you. If the seizure hadn't triggered the alarms, if you'd been asleep for another hour, you wouldn't have woken up." The words settled over the room like ice. Raymond's expression went even harder. Marlene's grip on Grace's hand tightened to almost painful. Derek put his head in his hands, and Grace just breathed. In and out, still alive, still here. Against all odds, Officer Patricia Brennan arrived 20 minutes later. She was 41, sharp-eyed, experienced, the kind of cop who'd seen everything and wasn't easily shocked. But even she looked disturbed as she reviewed the evidence. The video, the test results, the timeline, the affair, all of it laid out in brutal detail. "This is premeditated attempted murder," Patricia said. "Possibly multiple counts if she's been tampering with Mrs. Morrison's treatment for weeks." She looked at Derek. "And you, Mr. Morrison, are in serious trouble. At minimum, you're a witness. At maximum, you are an accessory." I didn't know, Derek said desperately. I swear to God, I didn't know she would do this. But you knew she was obsessed, Patricia said. You knew she wanted more from you. You knew she saw your wife as an obstacle, and you kept seeing her anyway. You brought her into this hospital, gave her access, gave her information. That makes you complicit. Derek's face crumpled. I need a lawyer. Yes, Raymond said coldly. You do. Patricia set up a command center in an empty conference room. Computer equipment, printers, a whiteboard already filling with notes and timelines. Grace watched from her hospital bed via video feed. Raymond had insisted. She had a right to see everything, to know everything. Marlene stayed with her, hand in hand, both women silent, watching as the investigation unfolded. Dr. Webb pulled up more security footage, not just the hallway outside Grace's room, every camera in the hospital, parking garage, lobby, employee entrance, pharmaceutical representative sign-in desk. The timeline emerged piece by piece. Vanessa Caldwell had signed out at 8 p.m. Her car had left the parking garage at 8:14 p.m. Normal, expected. But at 2:38 a.m., a car matching her vehicle had returned, parked in a visitor spot far from the cameras. A figure in dark clothing had entered through a side service entrance. Key card access. The door shouldn't have opened for her, but it did. She has an access card, Dr. Webb said. One she shouldn't have. Those cards are only issued to employees and residents. Could Derek have given her one? Patricia asked. Derek sat in the corner of the conference room. Lawyer beside him, expensive suit, sharp eyes, already earning his fee. My client has no comment at this time. Patricia didn't push. She didn't need to. The evidence was building itself. Card access logs showed the stolen key card had been used 43 times in the past month. Always late at night, always in restricted areas, including the pharmaceutical supply room. She's been stealing, Dr. Webb said. Insulin, sedatives, other medications, all of it documented, all of it logged to that key card. And no one noticed? Patricia's voice was sharp. The thefts were small, a vial here, a syringe there, nothing that would trigger an automatic alert. She was careful, methodical. This wasn't impulsive, this was planned. Grace felt cold despite the warm hospital room. Planned. Vanessa Caldwell had been planning to kill her for weeks, maybe longer, taking time, gathering supplies, learning routines, studying weaknesses. And Derek had helped her. Maybe not intentionally, but he'd given her information, access, opportunities. He'd told her when Grace was alone, when her nurse stepped away, when the monitoring equipment was being calibrated. All those casual conversations, all those innocent questions about Grace's health, all of it feeding information to someone who wanted her dead. More footage. Vanessa entering Grace's room at 2:47 a.m. The timestamp was exact, precise. She was visible for just 3 seconds in the hallway. Then the door closed. 6 minutes passed. The door opened. She emerged, walked quickly back toward the service entrance. Patricia froze the frame, enhanced the image. Vanessa's face filled the screen. Clear, undeniable. There was no way to claim it was someone else. No way to argue mistaken identity. Raymond studied the image. She looks pleased with herself. He was right. Vanessa's expression wasn't nervous or guilty. It was satisfied, smug even, like she'd just completed a difficult task successfully, like she'd just done something she was proud of. Grace's stomach turned. This woman had just poisoned her IV, had just tried to kill her and her unborn baby, and she looked happy about it. I want her arrested, Grace said. Her voice came through the video feed, strong, clear. Now, before she runs, before she destroys evidence. Now. Patricia nodded. Already in motion. I have 2 officers at her apartment, 2 more at her office. She's not going anywhere. Raymond made another call. His security team had found Vanessa's car, still in the hospital parking garage, parked in a dark corner, waiting. She's still here, Raymond said, in the building, waiting to see if it worked, waiting to see if Grace dies. The thought was chilling. Somewhere in this hospital, Vanessa Caldwell was walking around. Maybe in the cafeteria, maybe in a bathroom, maybe in another patient's room, free, unaware that she'd been caught, that her crime had been documented, that police were coming for her. Grace wanted to scream, to warn people, to make sure no one else was in danger. But Patricia was already on it. Hospital security was locking down the building, checking every floor, every room, every person who didn't belong. Derek's lawyer whispered something to him. Derek shook his head, whispered back. A sharp exchange. The lawyer sat back frustrated. "My client would like to make a statement," the lawyer said. Patricia's eyebrows rose. "Against my advice, I'm sure." "My client insists," Derek stood. He looked older than 35. Older and smaller and broken. "I want to tell you everything. About the affair, about Vanessa, about what I knew and when I knew it." "Derek, don't," his lawyer said sharply. "I have to. Grace deserves the truth. All of it." Derek looked directly at the camera, directly at Grace. "I met Vanessa 8 months ago. She was making her rounds, visiting doctors, promoting new medications. We started talking, just talking at first. She was smart, funny, easy to talk to." Grace felt Marlene's hand tighten on hers. A silent reminder, you don't have to listen to this. But Grace did have to listen. She needed to know, needed to understand how she'd gotten here. "It became more than talking," Derek continued. "We started meeting for coffee, then drinks, then dinner. I knew it was wrong. I knew I was married. I knew Grace was pregnant. But I couldn't stop." "Why?" Patricia asked. "Why couldn't you stop?" Derek's face twisted. "Because she made me feel important. Special. Like I mattered. Grace was always so focused on the baby, on preparing, on nesting. I felt like I disappeared, like I was just a paycheck and a sperm donor. Vanessa made me feel like a person again." Grace closed her eyes, breathed through the pain. So it was her fault. She'd focused too much on the pregnancy, on preparing for their child, on building a future. And he'd felt neglected. So he'd found someone who gave him attention. Classic narcissism, classic selfishness, classic Derek. "When did Vanessa start asking about Grace's medical treatment?" Patricia asked. "About 3 weeks ago. She asked what Grace's diagnosis was, what medication she was on, how often she was monitored. I thought she was just curious, making conversation. I didn't think anything of it." "You gave her information about your wife's private medical records." "I didn't think it mattered." "It matters very much. It's illegal. It's a HIPAA violation. And it makes you complicit in what happened next." Derek sat down, hard. His face was white again. "I didn't know she would do this, I swear. I thought she understood. I told her I couldn't leave Grace, not while she was pregnant. Maybe after the baby came. Maybe we could figure something out then. But not now." "And how did Vanessa respond to that?" "She said she understood. She said she'd wait, that we had time." I believed her. Grace opened her eyes, watched Derek on the screen. He looked sincere, desperate, believable. But Grace had learned, liars always look sincere. That's what makes them good liars. "When did you last see Vanessa?" Patricia asked. "Yesterday, 6 p.m., in the hospital parking garage. She texted me, said she needed to talk. We met for 20 minutes. "What did you talk about?" "She asked when Grace was being released. I said probably in 2 more days. She asked if Grace would be alone at night. I said yes, her regular nurse left at 2 a.m. Night shift nurse made rounds every hour." Patricia's expression went hard. "You told her when Grace would be alone. You told her when the nurse wouldn't be watching. You gave her the perfect window to attack." "I didn't know that's what she was planning." "What did you think she was planning, Mr. Morrison? You just told her you couldn't be with her yet, that your pregnant wife was in the way. What exactly did you think would happen?" Derek had no answer, just sat there, looking small and guilty and pathetic. Raymond hadn't moved during the entire exchange, just watched his son. When Derek finished talking, Raymond spoke quietly. "You've destroyed everything, your marriage, your career, your family, your freedom. All for what? For a woman who tried to commit murder? Was it worth it?" Derek put his head in his hands, started crying, loud, ugly sobs. Grace watched without feeling anything. The tears didn't move her. The guilt didn't move her. Nothing about Derek moved her anymore. Whatever she'd felt for him once, it was dead now. Killed by betrayal, by lies, by the insulin someone had added to her IV while he'd given them the information to do it. Patricia received a call, listened. Her face changed. "We have her," Vanessa Caldwell, apprehended in the hospital cafeteria. She had vials of insulin in her purse and a key card that shouldn't work on this floor anymore. Grace felt something shift inside her chest. Relief, justice, safety. Vanessa Caldwell was caught, arrested, unable to hurt anyone else. But the feeling was hollow, because catching her didn't undo the damage, didn't erase the fear, didn't restore the life Grace had lost, the marriage, the trust, the innocence. Everything was different now. Everything was broken, and Grace didn't know if any of it could be fixed. Raymond turned to the camera, looked directly at Grace. "She's caught. You're safe. The baby was safe. We'll handle the rest." Grace nodded, too tired to speak, too overwhelmed to process. Marlene squeezed her hand. "You're doing great. Just breathe. Just stay with me." Grace breathed in and out, counted the baby's kicks. 1, 2, 3, still alive, still fighting, still here. That's what mattered. Not Derek, not Vanessa, not the betrayal, just survival, just one breath after another, just making it through the next minute, the next hour, the next day. Grace looked at her reflection in the darkened window. Pregnant woman in a hospital bed, IV attached, monitors beeping. She looked like every other patient, vulnerable, fragile, helpless. But she wasn't helpless. She'd survived. She'd called for help. She'd provided evidence. She'd fought back without even meaning to. Her body had seized. The alarms had sounded. The nurses had come running. She'd saved herself, and she'd saved her baby. That was power. Real power, not the kind Raymond Morrison had with his billions, not the kind Derek had thought he had with his lies. The power to survive, to endure, to keep breathing when everything said to give up. Grace touched her belly. "We're okay, baby. We're going to be okay." She wasn't sure if she believed it, but she needed to say it, needed to hear the words out loud, needed to make them true through sheer force of will. Marlene leaned close, whispered, "Do you want me to turn off the feed? You don't have to watch anymore." Grace shook her head. "I need to see. I need to know everything. No more secrets, no more lies. I need the truth, all of it." "Okay, I'm here. Whatever you need." Grace watched as Patricia prepared to interrogate Vanessa Caldwell. The woman who tried to kill her. The woman who'd been sleeping with her husband. The woman who'd thought she could just eliminate Grace and take her place. Grace wanted to see her face, wanted to hear her voice, wanted to understand what kind of person tries to poison a pregnant woman's IV. Because understanding was the first step to healing, and Grace needed to heal. For herself, for the baby, for whatever came next. The interrogation was about to begin. Vanessa Caldwell didn't lawyer up immediately. That was her first mistake. Patricia knew it, Raymond knew it, even Derek's lawyer knew it. The guilty ones who think they're smart always make that mistake. They think they can talk their way out, charm their way through, explain everything until it makes sense. They never can, but they always try. Grace watched through the video feed as Vanessa was led into an interrogation room. She wore yoga pants and a hoodie, blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail, no makeup. She looked younger without it, vulnerable, almost innocent. But Grace saw the truth behind the facade, saw it in the way Vanessa's eyes darted around the room, calculating, assessing, looking for advantages, for weaknesses, for ways to win. Patricia sat across from her, patient, professional. She'd done this thousands of times, knew exactly how to play it. Start gentle, build rapport, let them feel comfortable, safe, then tighten the noose slowly until they hang themselves. "Vanessa, thank you for speaking with me," Patricia said. Her tone was conversational, almost friendly. "I know this must be confusing, scary. Can I get you anything? Water, coffee?" "Water would be good." Patricia signaled to another officer. A bottle of water appeared. Vanessa opened it, drank half in one long gulp. Her hands shook slightly, barely noticeable, but Grace noticed. "Why don't we start simple?" Patricia said. "Tell me about your relationship with Derek Morrison." Vanessa's face softened. "We're in love." 3 words, said simply, like they explained everything, like love was a defense, a justification, a get-out-of-jail-free card. "How long have you been together?" 8 months. Best 8 months of my life." "And you knew he was married?" "Yes, but he wasn't happy. He told me. His marriage was dead long before I came along." Grace's hands clenched on the blanket. Marlene put a steadying hand on her shoulder. "Breathe, just breathe." Patricia continued. "Did Derek tell you he was planning to leave his wife?" "Yes. After the baby. He didn't want to stress Grace during the pregnancy. He's a good man. Thoughtful. Kind." The words twisted like knives. Kind. Thoughtful. Derek, the man who'd been lying to Grace for 8 months, who'd given her mistress information to hurt her, who'd sat in the corner while his wife almost died. "But babies complicate things," Patricia said gently. "Child support, custody, split holidays. He'd never fully be yours, would he?" Vanessa's expression flickered, just for a second, but Grace saw it. The anger, the resentment, the jealousy, all of it right there on her face before she smoothed it away. "We would have figured it out. We love each other." "So why were you in Grace Morrison's hospital room at 2:47 this morning?" "I wasn't. We have video footage." Vanessa went very still. "That's impossible. The hospital has security cameras. We have clear footage of you entering room 316. You were there for 6 minutes. What were you doing?" "I wanted to see her, see who Derek was choosing over me, just for a little while longer. I just wanted to understand." "And you brought insulin with you." "Wait for me. I'm a pharmaceutical sales rep. I carry samples." "You added it to her IV bag." "I didn't. We have the IV bag. We have your fingerprints on it. We have test results showing dangerously high levels of insulin. Enough to kill her. Enough to kill the baby. You did that, Vanessa. You tried to murder a pregnant woman." Vanessa's face went white, then red. Her composure cracked. "You don't understand. It's not what you think." "Then explain it to me. Make me understand." Grace watched Vanessa's hands on the table. She kept spreading her fingers flat, then curling them into fists, over and over. The same nervous gesture Grace made when she was trying not to panic. It was unsettling, disturbing, seeing her own mannerism in the woman who'd tried to kill her. "Derek promised me," Vanessa said. Her voice had changed. Higher, younger, almost childlike. "He promised he'd leave her after the baby, but I knew he wouldn't. Babies change everything. He'd stay for the baby, stay for the child support, stay because it was easier than leaving." "So you decided to help things along?" "Well, I was trying to help him. He was trapped. Miserable. She trapped him with that baby. I was setting him free." Patricia leaned forward. "You do understand that's not how the law sees it. You tried to kill someone. That's attempted murder. Possibly 2 counts if we include the unborn child. That's 25 years to life in prison." "But I love him. Doesn't that matter?" "No, it doesn't. Love doesn't excuse murder." "It wasn't murder. It was liberation. I was liberating Derek from a life he didn't want, from a woman who didn't understand him, from a future that would have made him miserable." The room went absolutely silent. Even Patricia looked stunned. Grace felt sick. Vanessa actually believed it, actually thought she was the hero of this story, that she'd been doing Derek a favor. Doing the world a favor, removing an obstacle, solving a problem. She dehumanized Grace completely, turned her into a thing, an object, an inconvenience to be eliminated. Not a person, not a wife, not a mother carrying a child, just an obstacle standing in the way of what Vanessa wanted. Patricia recovered quickly. "Vanessa, I need to be very clear. You're confessing to attempted murder. You're telling me that you intentionally added insulin to Grace Morrison's IV with the intent to kill her. Is that correct?" Vanessa blinked. Realization dawned. "I want a lawyer." "Too late for that. You've already confessed. On camera, with witnesses. Everything you have said will be used against you in court. Patricia stood, signaled to the officers waiting outside. Vanessa Caldwell, you're under arrest for attempted murder. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. The Miranda rights continued. Vanessa sat frozen, shocked, like she couldn't understand how this had happened, how her love story had turned into a crime, how she'd gone from Derek's savior to a woman facing life in prison. Grace watched her being led away in handcuffs, watched her face crumple, watched her cry, and felt nothing. No satisfaction, no revenge, no joy, just emptiness, just exhaustion, just the overwhelming weight of everything that had happened. She really thought she was the victim in this story, Grace said quietly. Marlene nodded. Narcissists always do. Raymond appeared in the doorway of Grace's hospital room. He'd watched the interrogation from the conference room. Now he came to check on Grace, not out of affection. Raymond Morrison didn't do affection, but out of duty, out of responsibility, out of whatever drove him to fix problems and right wrongs. She's been arrested, he said. Bail will be set at $5 million. She won't make it. Her family doesn't have that kind of money. And Derek? He's being questioned separately. His lawyer is trying to limit the damage. But there's no question he was complicit. He gave her information, access, opportunity. The district attorney will decide what charges to file, but at minimum, he's looking at accessory to attempted murder. Grace nodded, took it in, processed it. Derek was going to prison. Her husband, the father of her baby, the man she'd married 3 years ago in a small ceremony that Raymond and Helen hadn't bothered to attend. All of it gone. All of it destroyed by secrets, by lies, by insulin in an eye bag. I want a divorce, Grace said. The words came out clear, strong, certain. I want full custody. I want him to have no rights, no access, no contact. I want him gone from our lives completely. Raymond nodded. My lawyers will handle it, whatever you need. I need to sleep. I need to process. I need to be alone for a while. Raymond understood. He left without argument. Marlene hesitated. You want me to go too? Just for a little while. I'll call you later. Marlene hugged her, tight, fierce. I'm so proud of you. You're the strongest person I know. Grace didn't feel strong. She felt shattered, but she nodded anyway. Let Marlene think she was okay. Let everyone think she was okay. She'd fall apart later. In private, where no one could see. The room emptied, just Grace and the monitors and the baby. Quiet. Finally, blessedly quiet. Grace put her hand on her belly. The baby kicked, strong, healthy, unaware of the chaos, unaware that someone had tried to end her life before it began. I deserved better than this, Grace whispered. I deserved a husband who protected me, not one who brought danger to my door. I deserved honesty, loyalty, love, real love, not whatever Derek was pretending to feel. The words felt good, felt true, felt necessary. Grace needed to say them out loud, needed to hear them, needed to believe them. She'd spent 8 months making excuses for Derek's behavior, telling herself he was stressed, busy, distracted, that things would get better after the baby came, that they just needed to get through this difficult patch. But it wasn't a patch, it was the truth. Derek didn't want this life, didn't want this marriage, didn't want her. Maybe he never had. Maybe she'd been convenient, safe, the kind of woman you marry when you're 30 and your parents are pressuring you to settle down. But he'd never loved her. Not really. Not the way she'd loved him. And his mistress had seen that, had exploited it, had tried to remove Grace permanently so she could slide into her place. Grace's phone buzzed. Text message from the same unknown number. She picked it up, read it. Her blood ran cold again. This isn't over. Grace stared at the message. Vanessa was in custody. Derek was being questioned. Who was sending these texts? Who else was involved? She forwarded the message to Patricia immediately, then turned off her phone. She couldn't deal with any more tonight, couldn't process anymore, couldn't think anymore. The baby kicked again. Grace counted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A whole conversation. Baby was awake, active, healthy. "We're going to be okay," Grace whispered. "I don't know how, but we will, I promise." She closed her eyes, let exhaustion pull her under, let sleep claim her. Tomorrow she'd deal with lawyers and police and divorce papers and protective orders. Tomorrow she'd start figuring out how to rebuild a life from ruins. But tonight she just needed to survive, just needed to rest, just needed to believe that morning would come, that she'd wake up, that the nightmare would be a little more bearable in daylight. Grace Morrison, 32 years old, 7 months pregnant, almost murdered, fell asleep in her hospital bed and dreamed of nothing, just blessed empty darkness, just the silence of a mind too overwhelmed to produce dreams, just survival. One breath at a time, 3 in the morning. Grace had insisted everyone go home. Raymond had left reluctantly. Marlene had double-checked 3 times before finally heading back to her apartment. Even the nurses had stopped hovering quite so much. Their rounds stretched from every 30 minutes to every hour. Grace was alone. Finally. Truly alone. Private security stood outside her door. 2 men Raymond had hired. Ex-military, competent. But they were outside. In here, it was just Grace in the darkness and the baby. She couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Vanessa's face on the security footage. Saw Derek's expression when he'd admitted the affair. Saw the vials of insulin. Saw her own mortality reflected back at her in harsh hospital lighting. The baby was awake too, kicking, moving, restless, like she could sense her mother's anxiety, like she knew something was wrong. "Hey, baby," Grace whispered into the darkness. "It's just us now." The fetal monitor beeped steadily, 140 beats per minute. Perfect, beautiful, alive. Grace focused on that sound. Let it anchor her, ground her, remind her what mattered. She thought about Derek, 3 years of marriage, or what she'd thought was marriage. Had any of it been real? Their wedding day? He'd cried during his vows, or had he? Now Grace couldn't remember. Couldn't separate real memories from imagined ones. Couldn't trust anything she thought she knew. Their honeymoon in Maui. He'd said he'd never been happier. Had he meant it, or had he been lying even then? Planning his escape? Tolerating her until something better came along? The day she'd told him about the pregnancy, he'd seemed excited. Kissed her, held her, talked about baby names and nursery colors. But was that real? Or was that the moment he'd realized he was trapped? Stuck with a wife he didn't love and a baby he didn't want? Grace felt tears slide down her face. Hot, angry, bitter. She'd been so stupid, so trusting, so naive. She'd seen the signs, the distance, the late nights, the phone calls he'd take in another room, the smell of perfume that wasn't hers. She'd noticed all of it and ignored all of it, because admitting it would mean admitting her marriage was a lie, that her baby's father didn't want them, that she'd have to start over. Alone, pregnant, 32 years old. So she'd lied to herself, made excuses, told herself everything was fine, that she was being paranoid, that pregnancy hormones were making her crazy. "The hardest part is admitting I knew all along," Grace said into the darkness. "Some part of me knew. I just didn't want to believe it." She'd been a nurse. She knew the signs of infidelity, had seen them in patients' relationships, in friends' marriages, in her own parents before they divorced when she was 12. She knew what betrayal looked like, and she'd ignored it when it was happening to her, because believing the lie was easier than facing the truth. Grace thought about the distance. It had started 6 months ago, subtle at first. Derek coming home and going straight to the shower, working out more, dressing better, taking more care with his appearance. She'd told herself he was taking better care of himself, that it was good, healthy. Never mind that he'd never cared about fitness before. Never mind that he'd suddenly started buying expensive cologne. Never mind that his phone was always face down now, always locked, always guarded. Little things, things she'd noticed and dismissed, things that added up to an affair she hadn't wanted to see. Grace got out of bed slowly. Every movement hurt. Her body was still recovering from the seizure, from the insulin overdose, from nearly dying. She walked to the window, looked out at the hospital parking lot below. Empty. Quiet, a few cars scattered here and there, ambulances waiting in the bay, the rest just darkness. She could see her reflection in the glass, pregnant woman in a hospital gown, IV still attached, looking like every other patient, vulnerable. Anonymous, reduced to medical condition and room number. She touched the cold glass. Somewhere out there, Vanessa Caldwell was in a jail cell, and Derek was probably in his expensive car, driving home to their empty house. Or maybe not their house. Maybe he was going to Vanessa's apartment. Maybe he was already planning his defense, his excuse, his next lie. Grace's phone sat silent on the bedside table. She'd turned it back on after her nap. No new messages. The threatening text had been the last one. Patricia had traced it. Burner phone. Untraceable. Could have been Vanessa. Could have been someone else. They didn't know. Grace had tried calling her mother. No answer. Her mother lived in Florida now, retired, remarried, building a new life. She'd call her back tomorrow. When she saw the missed calls, when Grace told her what happened, she'd be horrified, supportive, would probably fly up immediately, but Grace didn't want her mother here, didn't want to explain, didn't want to admit she'd married the wrong man, made the wrong choice, ignored all the warning signs until it was almost too late. A soft knock on the door. Grace tensed. The security guard opened it slowly. "Mrs. Morrison, you have a visitor. Says she's family." Helen Morrison stepped into the room. Derek's mother, the woman who'd made Grace feel unwelcome at every family gathering for 3 years, who'd looked at Grace like she was inferior. Wrong. Not good enough for her son. Helen's eyes were red from crying, her perfect makeup smudged, her designer clothes rumpled. She looked human, breakable. Grace had never seen her look human before. "I didn't raise him to do this," Helen said quietly. It wasn't an apology, not quite. But it was something, an acknowledgement, a crack in the perfect facade. Grace didn't know what to say. What was there to say? "Your son is a liar. Your son helped someone try to kill me. Your son destroyed everything." None of it would help. None of it would change anything. Helen sat in the chair by the bed, silence stretched between them, uncomfortable, heavy, the weight of everything unsaid. "I've been calling Derek all night," Helen said finally. "He won't answer. Maybe he's with his lawyer. Maybe he's a coward." That got Grace's attention. Helen Morrison never criticized Derek. He was her golden child, her only child, perfect in every way. Or so Grace had thought. "I knew he was distant with you," Helen continued. Her hands shook as she clutched her purse. "I thought that was just Derek. He's never been warm, not since he was a boy. But I should have said something. Should have asked if you were okay. Would it have mattered? Probably not, but I should have tried." Helen finally looked at Grace, really looked at her. Not the dismissive glance she usually gave, not the judgment, just looked. Woman to woman, mother to almost mother. "You're having my grandchild, my first grandchild, and I've been treating you like an inconvenience." Grace's throat tightened. She didn't want to cry in front of this woman, didn't want to show weakness, didn't want to give Helen Morrison the satisfaction of seeing her break. "I'm sorry," Helen said. 2 words she'd never said to Grace before. 2 words that didn't fix anything but somehow mattered anyway. "Thank you," Grace managed. Helen opened her purse, pulled out a small photo album. "I thought you might want to see these, Derek as a boy." She flipped through pages. Normal childhood photos, birthdays, holidays, Little League, school pictures, a life documented in snapshots. "He used to be sweet," Helen said. "Genuinely sweet, loving, affectionate. I don't know what happened." She stopped on a photo of young Derek hugging a golden retriever. He couldn't have been more than 11. Smiling, happy, innocent. "That was Ranger," Helen said. "Derek loved that dog more than anything. When Ranger died, Derek just shut down. 11 years old. Didn't cry. Didn't talk about it. Just went cold. Like he'd decided feelings were too dangerous, too painful. Better to feel nothing at all." Grace studied the photo, trying to see the man she'd married in this child's face. trying to understand, not to excuse, but to understand. I'm not making excuses, Helen said quickly. What he did is unforgivable. Helping that woman, betraying you, putting you and the baby in danger. Nothing justifies that. I just wanted you to know he wasn't always this person. I don't love him anymore, Grace said. The words came out before she could stop them. But they were true. Sitting in this hospital bed, nearly murdered, she realized the love had died. Maybe weeks ago, maybe months ago, maybe the moment she'd stopped ignoring the signs and started seeing the truth. Helen nodded, didn't argue, didn't defend her son. Then my grandchild deserves better than growing up around that. What are you saying? I'm saying whatever you need, you have it. Legal support, financial support, a place to stay when you are released. You shouldn't have to face this alone, not from Derek, but from me and Raymond. We're making this right. Grace stared at her. This was the last thing she'd expected. Helen Morrison offering help, support, alliance. The woman who'd barely tolerated Grace for 3 years was now offering to stand beside her. Well, boy, Grace asked. Because you're carrying my grandchild. Because you were almost murdered in your hospital bed. Because my son is complicit. Because it's the right thing to do. Helen's voice broke. Because I failed you. I saw Derek pulling away, saw him changing, saw the signs, and I said nothing. Did nothing, that makes me complicit too. No, this isn't your fault. Isn't it? I raised him. I shaped him. I taught him that feelings were weakness, that vulnerability was failure, that image mattered more than truth. I created the man who could lie to his pregnant wife for 8 months. That's on me. Grace didn't know what to say. Helen was right and wrong at the same time. Derek made his own choices, but families shape us, damage us, teach us what love looks like. And maybe Derek had never learned what real love was. Maybe he'd only learned performance, facade, the appearance of feeling without the substance. I can't think about this right now, Grace said. I'm too tired, too overwhelmed. I just need to get through tonight. Tomorrow I'll figure out the rest. Of course. Helen stood, hesitated, then leaned down and hugged Grace. Actually hugged her. The first time in 3 years. It was awkward, unpracticed, but real. You're going to be a wonderful mother, Helen whispered. Then she was gone. The door closed quietly behind her. Grace was alone again, but something had shifted. Something small but significant. She wasn't completely alone. She had Marlene. She had Raymond and Helen against all odds. Off all odds. She had doctors and lawyers and security guards. She had people on her side. People who would help her fight. People who would stand with her when Derek tried to destroy her in divorce court. When his lawyers tried to paint her as unstable. When the world tried to blame her for not keeping her husband happy. She had an army. She just hadn't realized it yet. Grace looked out the window again. Dawn was coming, faint light on the horizon, night bleeding into day. She'd survived. She'd made it through the darkest hours, and morning was coming. The baby kicked, hard, insistent. Grace put both hands on her belly, felt the movement, the life, the future. We're going to be okay, Grace whispered. I don't know how yet, but we will. I promise you. We will go. She believed it. For the first time since the seizure, she actually believed it. Not because anything had changed, but because she had. She wasn't the woman who checked into this hospital 3 days ago. That woman would have forgiven Derek, would have believed his excuses, would have tried to save the marriage. This woman knew better. This woman understood that some things couldn't be forgiven, shouldn't be forgiven. Some betrayals were too deep, too complete, too dangerous. This woman was going to survive, was going to divorce her cheating husband, was going to raise her daughter alone, was going to build a life from the ruins, a better life, a real life, a life built on truth instead of lies. Grace Morrison, 32 years old, 7 months pregnant, almost murdered, watched the sun rise through her hospital window and made a decision. Not revenge, not forgiveness, just survival. Just putting one foot in front of the other, just doing whatever it took to protect her daughter. That was enough. For now, that was enough. Morning came with hospital efficiency, Nurses checking vitals. Breakfast tray delivered. Doctors making rounds. The machinery of healing and recovery clicking into motion. Grace felt more human, more clear. Sleep had helped. So had Helen's unexpected visit. Dr. Mitchell arrived with good news. Your levels are stable. The baby's heartbeat is strong. No signs of lasting damage from the insulin overdose. You are incredibly lucky. Lucky. Grace almost laughed. Lucky to have survived attempted murder. Lucky to have caught it early. Lucky to have alarms that worked and nurses who responded and video cameras that captured everything. Some luck. But she understood what Dr. Mitchell meant. It could have been worse. She could have died. The baby could have died. They could both be gone. Instead, they were here, alive, fighting. When can I go home? Grace asked. A few more days. I want to monitor you closely. Make sure there are no delayed reactions, no complications. We're being cautious. Grace nodded. She didn't want to stay in the hospital. But she understood. Oh, son. Safety first, for her, for the baby, for everyone. Raymond arrived mid-morning with lawyers, 3 of them, expensive suits, leather briefcases, serious expressions. They spread documents across the rolling table beside Grace's bed. We're building multiple cases simultaneously, one lawyer explained. Her name was Claire Hartley, Raymond's assistant, 45, competent, efficient. She'd been with Raymond for 15 years. Criminal case against Vanessa Caldwell. Civil case against Vanessa for damages, divorce from Derek, restraining orders, custody arrangements. This is comprehensive. Grace felt overwhelmed. I don't even know where to start. You don't have to, Claire said kindly. That's what we're here for. You just need to sign where indicated and tell us what you want, your goals, your priorities. We'll make it happen. What did Grace want? She thought about it, really thought about it. Not revenge. That wouldn't heal her, wouldn't protect the baby, wouldn't rebuild her life. But justice, yes. Justice and safety and the resources to start over. To raise her daughter without Derek's toxicity, without his lies, without his family's judgment. I want full custody, Grace said. No visitation, not supervised, nothing. I don't want Derek anywhere near my daughter, ever. The lawyers made notes. Given his complicity in the attempted murder, that's achievable. The court will prioritize the child's safety. I want the house, the cars, our joint accounts, everything. He tried to have me killed. He doesn't deserve half. He deserves nothing. More notes. We'll pursue full asset division in your favor. Given the circumstances, we have strong grounds. I want a restraining order. For me and the baby, 500 yards minimum. If he violates it, immediate arrest. Standard in these cases we'll file today. And I want him to pay medical bills, hospital bills, therapy bills, legal bills, all of it. He created this situation. He can fund the recovery. Agreed. We'll pursue maximum financial penalties. Grace felt something shift inside her. Not just anger anymore. Purpose. Direction. A plan. She was taking control, taking her life back, taking her power back. One document at a time. One decision at a time. One step toward freedom. Patricia Brennan arrived before lunch. She had updates on the criminal case. Vanessa Caldwell is being charged with attempted murder of an unborn child, assault with a deadly weapon, and breaking and entering. Her bail hearing is tomorrow. We're requesting $5 million. Will she make it? Grace asked. Unlikely. Her family is middle class. They don't have Morrison money. She'll probably stay in custody until trial. Good. Grace didn't feel guilty about that. Vanessa had tried to kill her, had methodically planned it, had stolen access cards and medications and information, had walked into Grace's room and added insulin to her IV with full knowledge of what it would do. She deserved to sit in jail, to be afraid, to understand consequences. Derek is cooperating, Patricia continued. He's given us everything about the affair, where they met, how often, what they discussed, how much he told her about you. Do I want to know? Patricia hesitated. Probably not, but it might help with the divorce. Proof of emotional cruelty, mental abuse, building a case for why you deserve everything. Tell me. So Patricia did, and it was worse than Grace had imagined. Derek had told Vanessa everything. Private things, intimate things, things Grace had shared in confidence, thinking she was talking to her husband, her partner, the person who was supposed to protect her secrets. He'd told Vanessa that Grace was clingy, needy, boring in bed, that the pregnancy had made her fat and unattractive, that he was only staying until the baby came because divorce while she was pregnant would make him look bad. Every cruel thought he'd ever had, every resentment, every moment of contempt, all of it shared with his mistress while he smiled at Grace, kissed her goodnight, told her he loved her. Grace felt sick, but she also felt clarity. This man wasn't worth mourning, wasn't worth missing, wasn't worth a single tear. He was cruel, selfish, small, and she was better off without him. Use all of it, Grace said, in court, in divorce proceedings, in custody hearings. I want the judge to see exactly who Derek Morrison is. I want everyone to know. Patricia nodded grimly. You'll have it. Marlene arrived during lunch, brought Yule food from outside. Italian, Grace's favorite. Pasta with marinara, garlic bread, salad with balsamic vinegar. Hospital food was terrible. This was heaven. I figured you needed something good, Marlene said. Something normal. Something that isn't hospital and tragedy, an attempted murder. Grace almost cried. This was what real friendship looked like. Bringing pasta, sitting beside the bed, just being there, not trying to fix anything, not offering empty platitudes, just showing up with garlic bread and love. They ate in comfortable silence. Then Marlene spoke. Derek called me this morning, asked me to talk to you, to tell you he's sorry, that he didn't mean for any of this to happen, that he loves you. What did you tell him? I told him to go to hell, that he's dead to me, that if I see him, I'll kick him in the balls so hard, he'll need his own hospital room. Grace laughed, really laughed, for the first time since the seizure. It felt good, felt normal, felt human. Thank you, Grace said, for everything, for being here, for bringing pasta, for threatening Derek's testicles, for being you. Always, you're stuck with me. Even when you try to get rid of me, I'm like herpes, forever. Grace laughed again. Marlene always knew how to lighten the darkness, how to find humor in tragedy, how to make survival feel possible. I'm scared, Grace admitted, about the baby, about being a single mother, about starting over at 32, about everything. Of course you're scared. You'd be crazy not to be, but you're also strong, stronger than you know. You survived attempted murder. You faced down a billionaire father-in-law. You're kicking Derek out of your life. That's not weakness. That's power. I don't feel powerful. Nobody does. Power isn't a feeling. It's a choice. You're choosing to serve it, to fight, to protect your daughter. That's power. Real power. Grace wanted to believe her. Tried to believe her. Maybe belief would come later. For now, she just had to keep moving, keep breathing, keep putting one foot in front of the other. The afternoon brought more legal work. Grace signed papers until her hand cramped. Divorce petition, custody filing, restraining order application, financial disclosures, medical authorizations, so many documents, so much bureaucracy, but each signature was progress. Each form filed is a step toward freedom. Claire explained each one patiently, made sure Grace understood. Never rushed, never pressured, just guided, supported, made the overwhelming feel manageable. You're doing great, Claire said. I know this is hard, but you're handling it perfectly. Derek's lawyers are going to try to paint you as vengeful, emotional, unstable, but you're building a case that's calm, rational, and thoroughly documented. That matters. Grace appreciated the validation, needed it, because part of her still felt guilty, like she should give Derek another chance, like she should try to save the marriage. Years of conditioning, years of being told that good wives forgive, Good wives compromise. Good wives put their husbands first. But Grace wasn't interested in being a good wife anymore. She was interested in being alive, in being safe, in raising her daughter in an environment free from lies and betrayal and potential murder. Helen returned in the evening, brought flowers, real ones, not the generic hospital bouquet, purple irises, Grace's favorite. How did Helen know that? Grace had mentioned it once. Once. 3 years ago at a family dinner, and Helen had remembered. I wanted to apologize again, Helen said, for how I treated you, for the distance, the coldness, the judgment. You deserve better from me. Why did you treat me that way? Grace asked. Honest question, honest answer requested. Helen sat down, thought about it. Because you weren't what I'd imagined for Derek. You were normal, middle class, a nurse. I'd always pictured him with someone from our world. Old money, right connections, someone who understood our lifestyle. Someone like Vanessa? God, no. Vanessa is trash pretending to be class. I meant someone with actual breeding, actual education, actual worth beyond looks. But instead he chose me. Yes, and I resented you for it. Not because you weren't good enough, but because you made me see that Derek was ordinary, that he wasn't special, that he'd chosen a normal life because he was a normal man, and I'd spent 35 years telling myself my son was extraordinary. Grace understood. Helen had built her identity around being Derek's mother, the mother of someone important, someone destined for greatness. Seeing him choose Grace had shattered that illusion, had forced Helen to see Derek as he really was. Average, mediocre, ordinary. I'm sorry I disappointed you, Grace said. You didn't disappoint me. Derek did, by being exactly who he is. Weak, selfish, disloyal. That's not your fault, that's his, and mine for not seeing it sooner. Helen pulled out her phone, showed Grace something. Bank transfer, $500,000, into an account in Grace's name only. What is this? Security, for you and the baby. Derek will fight the divorce. We'll try to hide assets. We'll make everything difficult. This is yours, untouchable. Insurance that you'll be okay no matter what. Grace stared at the number, $500,000, more money than she'd ever had, more than she'd earned in 10 years of nursing. Just given to her, by a woman who'd barely tolerated her existence. I can't accept this. Yes, you can. You're carrying my grandchild. You were almost murdered because of my son's choices. This is the least I can do. Take it, use it, build a life, raise my grandchild, be happy. That's all I ask. Grace's eyes filled with tears. Thank you, I don't know what to say. Say you'll let me be part of the baby's life, not now, not while everything is fresh and painful. But someday, when you're ready, I want to be a grandmother, a real one, not the cold, distant kind I've been in practice. I'd like that, Grace said honestly, because despite everything, she believed Helen, believed her regret, believed her desire to change, believed that people could grow, could learn, could become better versions of themselves. Helen hugged her again, warmer this time, more natural. You're going to be okay, Grace. I know it doesn't feel like it now, but you will be. You're stronger than you think. After Helen left, Grace sat in the quiet, processed everything. The money, the support, the unexpected alliances. Her life was still in ruins, but people were helping her rebuild. People she'd never expected. People who should have been her enemies were becoming her allies. Maybe that's what survival looked like. Not doing it alone, but accepting help, building community, letting people surprise you, letting them be better than you'd thought possible. Grace pulled out her phone, changed all her passwords, every single one. Bank, email, social media. She used her nursing school student ID number, the one from before Derek. From when she was just Grace, not Grace Morrison, just Grace, reclaiming her identity, one password at a time, one decision at a time, one breath at a time. The baby kicked hard, sharp jab under her ribs. Grace smiled. I know, baby, I'm scared too, but we're going to be okay. Your grandma just gave us $500,000. Your great-grandpa is building an army of lawyers. Your Auntie Marlene is ready to fight anyone who looks at us wrong. We're not alone. We're surrounded by people who love us. It felt true saying it, felt real, felt possible. For the first time since the seizure, Grace felt something other than fear and anger and pain. She felt hope, small, fragile, but there. Hope that maybe this nightmare would end. Hope that maybe she'd survive this. Hope that maybe somehow everything would work out. Grace Morrison, 32 years old, 7 months pregnant, almost murdered, allowed herself to hope, and it felt like the beginning of healing. Raymond's legal team descended on the hospital like a well-organized invasion. They'd commandeered another conference room, turned it into a war room, whiteboards filled with timelines, boxes of documents, laptops and printers and phones. It looked like they were preparing for battle, because they were. Grace sat in on the strategy session via video link, still in her hospital bed. Still monitored, but present, involved. This was her life they were dismantling and reconstructing. She needed to see it, understand it, control it as much as possible. Claire led the presentation, professional, thorough, nothing left to chance. We're pursuing 3 parallel tracks. Criminal prosecution of Vanessa Caldwell. That's the district attorney's job, but we're cooperating fully and providing resources. Civil suit against Vanessa for damages. That's ours. And divorce from Derek with full custody and asset division. Also ours. The screen filled with bullet points, charges, evidence, witnesses, timelines. It was overwhelming, but also comforting. These people knew what they were doing. They were building an airtight case, multiple airtight cases. Derek wouldn't know what hit him. The criminal case is strong, Claire continued. We have video evidence, physical evidence. The IV bag with Vanessa's fingerprints and the added insulin. Her confession during interrogation. Derek's testimony about providing information. And the threatening text to Grace. The district attorney is confident about conviction. What's she facing? Grace asked. 25 to life. Attempted murder carries a minimum of 15 years. Attempted murder of a pregnant woman can double that. Add in the other charges and she's looking at decades in prison. Good. Grace felt no sympathy, no regret. Vanessa had tried to kill her, had planned it methodically, had walked into her hospital room with murder in her heart and insulin in her hands. She deserved prison. Deserved to lose her freedom the way she'd tried to make Grace lose her life. The civil case will pursue damages, another lawyer explained. His name was Marcus Bennett, 50, gray hair, sharp eyes. Medical expenses, pain and suffering, emotional distress, lost wages if you're unable to work, punitive damages for intentional harm. We're looking at millions. Vanessa doesn't have millions. No, but her family does. And their homeowner's insurance might cover some of it, plus future wage garnishment. We'll collect one way or another. Grace nodded. She didn't care about the money. Not really. She cared about accountability, about making Vanessa understand that actions have consequences, that you can't try to kill someone and walk away unscathed. The divorce is more complicated, Claire said. Derek will fight it. He'll claim he's a victim too, that Vanessa manipulated him, that he had no idea what she was planning. His lawyers will try to preserve his assets, his reputation, his future. But we have leverage, Marcus added, his complicity, his confession to police, the HIPAA violations, giving his mistress access to confidential medical records. That's criminal. That's license revoking. That's career ending. His lawyers know that. They'll want to settle quickly, quietly, before it becomes more public. I don't want quiet, Grace said firmly. I want everyone to know what he did. I want the hospital to know he violated patient privacy. I want his family to know he helped someone try to murder his pregnant wife. I want the world to see exactly who Derek Morrison is. The lawyers exchanged glances. Claire spoke carefully. That's your right, but it might be harder on you. Media attention, public scrutiny. People will have opinions about your marriage, your choices, whether you should have seen the signs. Let them have opinions. I'm done protecting Derek, done making his life easier, done caring what people think. I want justice. I want truth. I want everyone to see. Raymond had been silent until now, watching, listening, taking it all in. Now he spoke. Do it. Full transparency. I'll handle any media fallout. I'll protect Grace from harassment. But let the truth come out. Derek needs to face consequences, real consequences, not just financial, social, professional, personal. He needs to lose everything the way he almost made Grace lose everything. The lawyers nodded, made notes, adjusted strategy. Grace felt a fierce satisfaction. This was happening. Derek's carefully constructed life was about to implode. His reputation would be destroyed, his career finished, his future uncertain. Exactly what he deserved. Patricia Brennan joined the meeting, updated everyone on Derek's status. He's been questioned 3 times. Each time, more evidence of his involvement emerges. He gave Vanessa Grace's medical information repeatedly, told her when Grace would be alone, which medication she was on, how to access the hospital after hours. He even gave her his employee key card temporarily. Grace's hands clenched, so it was worse than they'd thought. Derek hadn't just been careless. He'd been actively involved, had given Vanessa the tools she needed, had basically handed his wife over to be murdered. We're charging him as an accessory to attempted murder, Patricia said. His lawyer is fighting it, but the evidence is overwhelming. He'll be convicted. What's he facing? 10 to 15 years, could be less with good behavior and cooperation. But he's going to prison, that's certain. Grace processed this. Derek in prison, orange jumpsuit, shared cells, no privacy, no luxury, no escape. She tried to feel something, satisfaction, victory, justice, but mostly she just felt tired, empty, like watching her old life die while not quite believing in the new one yet. There's something else, Patricia said. Her expression changed, became more serious. We've been reviewing Grace's medical records from the past few months. There are irregularities. Dr. Mitchell appeared on the screen. She'd been working with the legal team, reviewing everything, looking for patterns. Someone accessed Grace's medical files multiple times over the past 8 weeks. Not just Derek, other accounts, other IP addresses, some from hospital computers, some from external sources. Grace felt cold. Vanessa? Some of them, yes, but not all. There's another person. We haven't identified them yet, but they were looking at your records, your test results, your medication schedules, everything. Who? We don't know. Hospital IT is investigating. But Grace, this might not be over. Vanessa had help, or someone else was involved. We need to find out who. The room went quiet, everyone processing. Grace felt her security crumble. She'd thought it was over. Vanessa caught, Derek exposed, justice in motion. But there was someone else. Someone still out there, still unknown, still potentially dangerous. I want increased security, Raymond said immediately. Double the guards outside Grace's room. No visitors without ID verification. No staff Grace hasn't met before. Lock this down completely. Dr. Webb joined the conversation. We're reviewing all access logs, all employee records, anyone who had contact with Grace or her records. This is now a full hospital investigation. Grace wanted to scream, wanted to cry, wanted to disappear, but she couldn't. She had to stay strong, had to protect the baby, had to survive whatever came next. Marlene squeezed her hand. We're here. We're not leaving. You're safe. We'll figure this out. Grace nodded, tried to believe it, but fear was creeping back. Cold, insistent, relentless. She'd thought the nightmare was ending, but it was just getting more complicated. The meeting continued, more evidence reviewed, more strategies discussed, more contingencies planned. It was exhausting, overwhelming, but necessary. They were preparing for war, and Grace was the prize both sides wanted. Derek to keep her quiet, to preserve his reputation, to avoid full consequences. Vanessa to eliminate her, to take her place, to have Derek to herself, and whoever else was involved, for whatever reasons, with whatever agenda. Grace was the target, the obstacle, the problem to be solved. She'd never felt more vulnerable in her life. When the meeting finally ended, Grace was exhausted, emotionally drained, physically depleted. She wanted to sleep for a week, but her mind wouldn't stop spinning. Who else was involved? What did they want? Were they coming for her? For the baby? Dr. Mitchell returned to check on her. How are you holding up? I don't know. Scared, confused, tired. That's normal. Grace, I want you to know we are taking this seriously. Your safety is our top priority. We're implementing new protocols, extra monitoring, background checks on every staff member who interacts with you. You're not alone in this. It doesn't feel that way. I know, but you are. You have an army of people protecting you, fighting for you, making sure you and the baby are safe. Trust that. Trust us. Grace wanted to, tried to, but trust had been shattered. First by Derek, then by Vanessa, now by an unknown person with unknown motives. How was she supposed to trust anyone? Dr. Mitchell seemed to understand. I can't promise that nothing bad will happen. I can't guarantee complete safety. But I can promise that we're doing everything humanly possible, that we're watching, investigating, protecting. That has to be enough for now. It had to be, because Grace didn't have another choice. She couldn't leave the hospital, couldn't protect herself, couldn't do anything but lie in this bed and hope the people around her were competent, were loyal, were actually on her side. After everyone left, Grace did what every woman does after betrayal. She pulled out her phone and opened her banking app, changed passwords again, added two-factor authentication, checked every transaction, made sure nothing suspicious was happening, control where she could find it, security in the small things. The baby kicked, hard, insistent. Grace put her hand on her belly, felt the movement, the life, the future. That's what mattered. Not Derek, not Vanessa, not whoever else was lurking in the shadows. Just this baby, just keeping her safe, just surviving long enough to bring her into the world. I know, baby, I'm scared too, but I'm not giving up. I'm not letting them win. We're going to make it through this, together. Grace closed her eyes, breathed, counted the baby's kicks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A whole conversation. Baby was active, healthy, unaffected by the chaos surrounding them. That had to be enough. For now, that had to be enough. Grace's phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. A feeling, an instinct, a need to know. Grace Morrison? A woman's voice, older, shaking. This is Linda Caldwell, Vanessa's mother. We need to talk. Grace should have hung up. Her lawyers would have killed her for taking this call, but curiosity won. What do you want? To apologize and to explain. Not excuse. I'm not calling to excuse what my daughter did, but to explain. So maybe you can understand. I'm listening. Vanessa has been in therapy since she was 16, borderline personality disorder. She fixates on people, on relationships, gets obsessive, can't let go. We've tried everything, medications, therapy, hospitalizations. Nothing really helps. Grace felt something unexpected. Not sympathy exactly, but recognition. Mental illness was real, devastating. It didn't excuse what Vanessa had done but it maybe explained how she'd gotten there. I knew she was seeing a married man, Linda continued. Her voice broke. I didn't know who. Didn't know she was escalating. Didn't know she'd planned something like this. If I'd known, I would have stopped her, I swear. Would you have, or would you have made excuses like you're doing now? Linda went quiet. When she spoke again, her voice was different, harder, more honest. You're right, I've spent 29 years making excuses for Vanessa, blaming her illness, blaming her father for leaving, blaming everyone but her, because admitting she's dangerous would mean admitting I failed as a mother. You didn't fail, didn't I? My daughter tried to murder a pregnant woman. How is that not failure? Grace didn't have an answer. She'd spent 3 years making excuses for Derek, ignoring signs, telling herself things would get better. She understood the temptation to lie to yourself, to protect the person you love, even when they don't deserve protection. My husband left when Vanessa was 8, Linda said. For another woman, younger, prettier, he just walked away. Started a new family like we never existed. Vanessa watched that happen, watched him choose someone else, watched him replace us. That doesn't justify attempted murder. No, it doesn't. Nothing does. Linda's voice broke completely. But maybe it explains why she couldn't let Derek go. Why she saw you as the enemy instead of the victim. You represented everything her father chose over us. The new woman, the new family, the replacement. Grace understood suddenly. Vanessa hadn't been trying to kill her specifically. She'd been trying to kill the symbol, the representation, the woman who reminded her of being abandoned, being replaced, being not enough. It didn't excuse anything, but it made sense in a twisted, heartbreaking way. I'm sorry for what happened to your family, Grace said carefully, but your daughter almost killed me and my baby. That's beyond obsession, beyond mental illness. That's attempted murder, and she has to face consequences. I know, and she will. I'm not asking you to drop charges. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know she wasn't always this person. She used to be sweet, loving, funny. The illness took that away slowly, until there was nothing left but rage and pain and desperation. I'm sorry, Grace said, and meant it. Not for Vanessa, for Linda, for a mother watching her daughter destroy herself, for a woman who'd done everything right and still ended up here. Thank you for listening, Linda said. I know you didn't have to. I know you probably hate us, but thank you. She hung up. Grace sat with the phone in her hand, processing, thinking, feeling more complicated emotions than she'd expected. Vanessa was still guilty, still deserved prison, still had made horrifying choices. But she was also sick, damaged, broken by abandonment and mental illness and her own inability to cope. Grace didn't forgive her, but she maybe understood her a little better. Dr. Mitchell entered. Everything okay? Security said you took a call. Vanessa's mother, she apologized, explained. Are you all right? I don't know. It's complicated. Most things are. Dr. Mitchell sat down. Grace, I need to discuss something. Vanessa Caldwell isn't the only one who accessed your medical records illegally. Grace's stomach dropped. You found out who? We did. Derek accessed your files 8 times in the past 2 months, including test results you hadn't seen yet. What results? Mitchell's face softened. Your amniocentesis results. They came back 3 weeks ago. Derek requested them before we could call you. And? The baby is perfectly healthy. A girl. No abnormalities. Completely healthy. A girl. Grace was having a daughter. Tears flooded her eyes. Happy tears. Sad tears. Complicated tears. A daughter. She'd been hoping. Secretly hoping. And now she knew. Why would Derek hide that? But even as she asked, Grace knew with horrible clarity. A healthy baby was a permanent tie. Child support for 18 years. Custody arrangements, visitation. Derek would never be free of Grace if the baby was healthy. He was feeding information to Vanessa, Grace said slowly, helping her plan. Dr. Mitchell nodded grimly. That's what we believe. Patricia Brennan has Derek's phone records. Text messages to Vanessa. Grace is in room 316. Her nurse leaves at 2 a.m. She's on an insulin drip for gestational diabetes. He gave her everything. The room went absolutely silent. Rage built into Grace's chest, hot, fierce, consuming. Derek had known, had actively participated, had basically served her up to his mistress on a silver platter. This wasn't negligence. This wasn't being manipulated. This was conspiracy. This was attempted murder. He'd known and he'd helped and he'd let it happen. I want full custody, Grace said. Her voice was cold, hard, unrecognizable even to herself. No visitation, not supervised, nothing. I don't want him anywhere near my daughter, ever. Raymond's lawyers immediately started writing. We'll file emergency custody papers today. I want the house, the cars, everything. Every penny of our joint accounts, every asset we have together. I want him to have nothing. Done. I want a restraining order for me and the baby, 500 yards minimum. If he comes near us, immediate arrest. We'll have it filed within the hour. Grace felt transformation happening. Not just anger, power, purpose. She wasn't a victim anymore. She was a fighter, a protector, a mother defending her child from a father who had tried to orchestrate her murder. Patricia arrived with formal charges. Derek Morrison is being charged as an accessory to attempted murder. He gave Vanessa access, information, assistance. He knew what she was capable of, and he facilitated it anyway. What's he facing? 15 years, maybe more. The district attorney is going hard on this, making an example. Hospital administrator helping his mistress poison his wife. That's national news. That's career ending for everyone involved. Good. Grace wanted Derek destroyed, wanted his reputation in ashes, wanted everyone to see what he really was. Not the charming hospital administrator, not the respectable Morrison's son, but a man so selfish, so cruel, so completely lacking in empathy that he'd help murder his pregnant wife. Marlene had been quiet through all of this. Now she spoke. Grace, are you sure? Once you go public with this, there's no taking it back. Everyone will know. Everyone will judge. Your daughter will grow up knowing her father tried to kill her mother. She'll also grow up knowing her mother fought back, that her mother was strong, that her mother didn't let him win. Marlene nodded. Then let's destroy him. Grace looked at her left hand, wedding ring still there. She twisted it off slowly. The skin underneath was paler, an indent where the ring had compressed. 3 years of marriage marked on her finger. She handed the ring to Raymond. Sell it, put the money toward a college fund for my daughter. Raymond took the ring. Done. Helen Morrison had been sitting quietly in the corner. She stood, walked to Grace, looked at her daughter-in-law with something like respect, like admiration, like recognition of strength she hadn't expected to find. You're going to be a wonderful mother, Helen said, and if you'll let me, I'd like to be a real grandmother, not the cold, distant kind, the kind who shows up, who helps, who loves fiercely. Grace felt her throat tighten. I'd like that. Helen hugged her, actually hugged her, tight, real. We're family now, not because of Derek, in spite of him, you and me and that baby girl. We're family. After everyone left, Grace sat in the quiet, processed everything. A daughter. Derek's betrayal was even worse than she thought. Conspiracy charges, prison time, the complete destruction of his life. She should feel guilty, should feel sorry for him, should want to pull back, soften the blow, be the bigger person. But she didn't feel any of that. She felt powerful, righteous, certain. Derek had made his choices. Now he'd live with consequences. And Grace would rebuild from the ashes. She pulled up her phone, looked at her banking apps, her accounts, her life in numbers and passwords. She changed everything again. New passwords, new security questions, new two-factor authentication, starting fresh, starting over, starting strong. The baby kicked. Grace smiled. Hi, baby girl. Your mama just took our life back. We're going to be okay now. Better than okay, we're going to be free. It felt true. For the first time since the seizure, Grace believed in her future. Not Derek's future, not the life she'd imagined with him, but her own future. A life built on truth and strength and hard-won wisdom. Now, Grace said to the assembled lawyers still watching via video, let's destroy him legally. 3 weeks later, Grace was released from the hospital. Not to the house she'd shared with Derek, to a new apartment Raymond had helped her find. 2 bedrooms, garden view, 10th floor, security building. Fresh start. The movers had already transferred her belongings, just hers, nothing of Derek's. She'd told them to leave everything that reminded her of him, furniture they'd picked out together, wedding photos, gifts from his family, all of it left behind in a house that would be sold to fund her daughter's future. Marlene had the 2nd bedroom temporarily. Until the baby comes, you need someone. I'm not taking no for an answer. Grace didn't argue. She needed someone. The fear still crept in at night. The worry that whoever else had accessed her records was still out there, still watching, still waiting. Having Marlene there made it bearable. The apartment was beautiful. Hardwood floors, large windows, natural light everywhere. Grace walked through slowly, taking it in. This was hers, only hers. No Derek, no lies, no betrayal, just clean white walls and empty rooms waiting to be filled with a new life. "What do you think?" Raymond asked. He'd come along for the move, supervised everything, made sure Grace was settled. He'd changed over the past 3 weeks, become more present, more human, less billionaire, and more grandfather. "It's perfect," Grace said honestly. "Thank you for everything. Your family, that's what family does." Family. Grace was learning what that word really meant. Not blood, not obligation, not duty, but choice. People who showed up, who helped, who stayed even when things got hard. The legal proceedings had moved quickly. Vanessa Caldwell had pleaded guilty to avoid trial. Her lawyer had argued diminished capacity. Mental illness, borderline personality disorder, years of trauma. The judge had listened, considered, and sentenced her to 28 years without possibility of parole. Grace had watched the sentencing via video feed. Vanessa had cried, apologized, said she never meant for things to go so far, that she just wanted to be with Derek, that love had made her crazy. The judge hadn't been moved. Love doesn't excuse attempted murder. Mental illness doesn't excuse attempted murder. You made choices, methodical choices. You stole medications. You accessed restricted areas. You added insulin to a pregnant woman's IV, knowing exactly what it would do. Those are not the actions of someone out of control. Those are the actions of someone who wanted a specific outcome, and that outcome was death. 28 years. Vanessa would be 57 when she got out. Her youth gone, her beauty faded, her life destroyed by her own choices. Grace had felt something watching that. Not satisfaction exactly, not revenge, just finality, justice, closure. Vanessa couldn't hurt her anymore, couldn't hurt anyone anymore. That had to be enough. Derek's case had been more complicated. His lawyers had fought hard, argued he'd been manipulated, used, that he hadn't known what Vanessa was planning, that giving her information was careless, but not criminal. The jury hadn't bought it. The text messages were too clear, too specific, too deliberate. Grace will be alone at 2 a.m. That wasn't carelessness. That was conspiracy. Derek had been convicted of accessory to attempted murder. Sentenced to 15 years, eligible for parole after 10 with good behavior. He'd be 50 when he got out. His career destroyed, his reputation ruined, his family ashamed. Grace had attended that sentencing in person, Marlene on one side, Raymond on the other. She'd wanted Derek to see her alive, pregnant, strong, surviving despite his best efforts to help murder her. Their eyes had met across the courtroom. Derek had looked broken, hollow, like he couldn't understand how he'd gotten there, how his affair had turned into this, how his entire life had imploded. Grace had felt nothing, no love, no hate, no anger, just nothing. He was a stranger now, a man she used to know, a mistake she'd made and learned from. The judge had asked if Grace wanted to make a victim impact statement. She'd prepared one, practiced it with her therapist, made sure every word counted. "Derek Morrison didn't just betray me," Grace had said, her voice steady, clear, strong. "He betrayed the fundamental promise of marriage, to protect, to cherish, to keep safe. Instead, he brought danger into my life. He gave a mentally unstable woman the information and access she needed to try to kill me. He prioritized his own pleasure over my life, over our daughter's life. That's not love. That's not marriage. That's narcissism so profound he couldn't see past his own wants to basic human decency." She'd paused, let the words sink in. "I don't forgive him. I don't wish him well, but I also don't hate him. Hate requires caring, and I don't care about Derek Morrison anymore. He's nothing to me, less than nothing. He's just a man who made terrible choices and now gets to live with the consequences. That's justice, and I'm satisfied with it." Derek had put his head in his hands, cried. His lawyer had tried to comfort him, But there was no comfort, just consequences. Just the life he'd built crumbling around him while he sat helpless to stop it. The divorce had finalized the week before Grace's hospital release. She'd gotten everything: the house, the cars, their joint savings, Derek's share of his trust fund. Raymond had made sure of it, used every legal tool available, every connection, every advantage. The house had sold for $4.2 million. Grace had put most of it in trust for her daughter, kept enough for living expenses, for building a new life, for security. She'd also established a foundation, the Grace Morrison Foundation for Hospital Patient Safety, dedicated to improving security protocols, training staff, preventing what had happened to her from happening to anyone else. Raymond served as chairman, Helen served on the board, Claire volunteered her time. Even Dr. Mitchell and Dr. Webb had signed on as advisors. They were building something real, something meaningful, something that would outlast the trauma and create positive change. Grace stood in her new bedroom, empty except for a bed Marlene had helped her pick out. Queen size, soft gray sheets, simple, clean, no memories attached. She lay down, felt the mattress support her, felt the baby kick in response to the movement. What do you think, baby girl? This is home now, just you and me, and Auntie Marlene until you're born. Then we'll figure it out. One day at a time. Her phone buzzed, text from Helen. Coming over with dinner, homemade lasagna, won't take no for an answer. Grace smiled. Helen had transformed over the past 3 weeks, from cold mother-in-law to devoted grandmother in waiting. She called every day, visited twice a week, helped with doctor appointments and legal paperwork and shopping for baby furniture. She cried when Grace showed her the ultrasound, cried harder when Grace asked if she wanted to be in the delivery room. I'd be honored, Helen had whispered. Oh, honored. Marlene emerged from her bedroom. Did Helen just invite herself to dinner again? Yep. That woman has boundary issues. The good kind, though, the I'm making sure you eat vegetables kind. Fair. I'm going to shower. You want help unpacking? Tomorrow. Tonight I just want to breathe, to sit in my new apartment, to be alone with my thoughts for a minute. Marlene understood. She always did. She hugged Grace. Holler if you need me. Grace walked to the window, looked out at the city below, cars moving, people living their lives, the world continuing. It was comforting somehow. Reminder that her trauma wasn't the center of everything, that life went on, that she could go on too. She thought about the woman who checked into the hospital 4 weeks ago, naive, trusting, ignoring red flags, making excuses for bad behavior. That woman was gone, dead, killed by insulin and betrayal and hard truths. This woman was different, stronger, wiser, less trusting but more authentic, less naive but more capable. She'd survived attempted murder. She'd faced down her husband's betrayal. She'd rebuilt her life from ashes. That was power, real power. The doorbell rang. Helen, right on time. Grace opened the door. Helen stood there with a casserole dish and a bag of groceries and a smile that was becoming more natural every time. Lasagna and salad and garlic bread, Helen announced. And I brought ice cream for Dazid because pregnant women need ice cream. Helen, you didn't have to. I wanted to. Let me in before this gets cold. Grace stepped aside. Helen bustled in, started setting up in the kitchen, moving around like she'd been there 100 times instead of never, making herself at home, making Grace feel at home. Raymond sends his love, Helen said. Mama man. He wanted to come, but he's handling some business with the foundation. They're meeting with hospital administrators from 6 states. Your story is making waves. People are implementing new security protocols, updating training, taking patient safety seriously. Grace felt something warm in her chest. Pride, maybe, or purpose. Her suffering was creating change, protecting other patients, making hospitals safer. That mattered. That meant something. How are you feeling? Helen asked. Really feeling? Not the polite answer, the truth. Grace thought about it. Scared, excited, overwhelmed, ready. Not ready, all of it at once. That's normal. That's being human. Is it normal to not miss Derek at all? Helen's hands stilled. She turned to look at Grace. Sweetheart, you're grieving the marriage you thought you had, not the one you actually had. The real marriage died a long time ago. You're just finally acknowledging it. Grace nodded. That made sense. She wasn't mourning Derek. She was mourning the fantasy, the illusion, the life she'd imagined that had never really existed. Do you miss him? Grace asked. Your son? Helen's face twisted. I miss the boy he used to be, before he learned to lie, before he decided image mattered more than character, before he became his father's son in all the worst ways. She paused. But the man he is now, no, I don't miss him. I'm ashamed of him. The words hung between them, heavy, true, painful. I'm sorry, Grace said. Don't be. He made his choices. He lives with them. You and I, we get to move forward, build something better. Raise your daughter to be nothing like him. They ate dinner together. Marlene joined them. The three women sat around Grace's new table in her new apartment, talking about baby names and nursery colors and birth plans. Normal things, happy things, future things. For the first time in weeks, Grace felt something like peace. Not complete, not perfect, but there, real, possible. After Helen left, after Marlene went to bed, Grace stood in what would be the nursery. Empty room, white walls, hardwood floor. She closed her eyes, imagined a crib, a rocking chair, soft yellow walls, books on shelves, stuffed animals. A life. We're going to be happy here, Grace whispered. I promise you that. We're going to build a life that's real. True. Good. No lies, no secrets, no betrayals. Just us, just love, just figuring it out together. The baby kicked. Agreement maybe, or just movement. But Grace chose to believe it was agreement, chose to believe her daughter understood, that they were in this together, that they'd be okay. Grace touched her belly, counted kicks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, a whole conversation. The baby was active tonight, healthy, strong, ready to be born in 8 more weeks. 8 weeks. That's all that was left. 8 weeks until everything changed again, until Grace became a mother, until her daughter entered the world, until their new life really began. I'm scared, Grace admitted to the empty room. Terrified, actually, but I'm also ready as I'll ever be. We're going to figure this out, one day at a time, one moment at a time, one breath at a time. She walked back to her bedroom, lay down in her new bed, stared at the ceiling, thought about everything that had happened, everything she'd survived, everything she'd learned. Life was fragile, love was complicated, trust had to be earned. Betrayal could come from anywhere, but so could healing, so could strength, so could new beginnings. Grace Morrison, 32 years old, 8 months pregnant, survivor of attempted murder, fell asleep in her new apartment. And for the first time in weeks, she didn't dream of insulin or hospitals or betrayal. She dreamed of her daughter, of holding her, of seeing her face, of beginning again. And the dreams were good. Grace's peaceful week in her new apartment ended abruptly. Patricia Brennan called early on Tuesday morning. Her voice was tight, urgent. Grace, we need to talk, in person, today. What's wrong? Not over the phone. I'm sending a car. Be ready in 30 minutes. Grace's stomach dropped. Something had happened. Something bad. She called Marlene, then Raymond. Within 20 minutes, both had arrived at her apartment, ready to face whatever came next. The car took them to police headquarters. Patricia met them at the entrance, led them to a secure conference room. No windows. Reinforced door. The kind of room used for sensitive cases. Doctor. Webb was already there. So was a woman Grace didn't recognize. FBI badge on her belt. Special Agent Monica Torres. 40s, sharp eyes, no-nonsense expression. Thank you for coming, Patricia said. We've had a breakthrough in the investigation, but it raises new questions. Dangerous questions. She pulled up files on the conference room screen. Medical records, access logs, IP addresses. Data Grace didn't fully understand but recognized as important. We've been investigating everyone who accessed Grace's medical records, Dr. Webb explained. Derek Morrison accessed them 8 times. Vanessa Caldwell accessed them 6 times using stolen credentials. But there's a third person, someone who accessed the records 14 times over 3 months. Who? Raymond's voice was hard. Dr. Christopher Allen, anesthesiologist at Grace Memorial, 43 years old, 15 years with the hospital. Impeccable record. No disciplinary actions. No complaints. Model employee. Grace searched her memory. I don't know anyone by that name. You wouldn't. He works primarily in surgery, but he has access to patient records through his anesthesiologist privileges, and he used that access repeatedly to review your files. Why? Special Agent Torres spoke for the first time. We don't know yet, but we found something concerning. Dr. Allen has a connection to Vanessa Caldwell. They attended the same college, dated briefly 15 years ago, stayed in contact sporadically over the years. Grace felt cold. Another person, another connection, another layer to this nightmare. Are you saying Dr. Allen was helping Vanessa? Marlene asked. We're saying it's possible. The timeline is suspicious. Dr. Allen started accessing Grace's records 2 weeks before Vanessa's first documented access, almost like he was gathering information for her, teaching her what to look for, how to exploit weaknesses. Patricia pulled up more evidence. Phone records. Dr. Allen called Vanessa 3 times in the week before the attack. Each call lasted more than 20 minutes. He also texted her twice. The messages were deleted, but our tech team recovered them. The messages appeared on screen. Grace read them. Her hands started shaking. She'll be alone Tuesday night. Night shift nurse makes rounds every hour. Insulin drip for gestational diabetes. Easy to supplement without detection. Room 316, 4th floor. Limited camera coverage near service entrance. Dr. Allen hadn't just accessed records. He'd actively helped plan the attack, given Vanessa tactical information, coaching, support. He was as guilty as she was. Maybe more so because he'd known better, known the risks, known the consequences, and done it anyway. Why? Grace asked. Why would he help her? What did he have to gain? We're still investigating that, Agent Torres said, but we found financial transfers. Vanessa paid Dr. Allen $15,000 total over 2 months. Small payments, $500 here, $1,000 there, structured to avoid automatic reporting. She paid him to help murder me. Yes, that's what the evidence suggests. Raymond stood abruptly, paced. His face was stone, but Grace saw rage beneath the surface. Where is he now? In custody, Patricia said. We arrested him this morning. He's being charged with conspiracy to commit murder, accessory to attempted murder, wire fraud, HIPAA violations. He's looking at 20 to 30 years. Does he know we know? Yes. His lawyer is trying to negotiate, claiming Dr. Allen was manipulated, that he didn't understand what Vanessa was planning, that he thought he was just helping a friend gather information. Does anyone believe that? No, the evidence is too clear. The payments, the specific tactical information, the timing. He knew exactly what he was doing. Grace felt sick. A doctor, someone sworn to heal, to do no harm, had helped plan her murder for $15,000. For what? Money? Was her life worth so little? There's more, Agent Torres said. We've been investigating Dr. Allen's background. He has significant gambling debts, over $200,000. Bookies in 3 states. He was desperate for money. Vanessa offered cash. He took it. So it was money. That simple. That banal. Grace's life was almost ended because a doctor needed to pay gambling debts. The randomness of it was almost worse than intentional malice. Is he talking? Raymond asked. Providing information? Cooperating? He wants to. His lawyer is pushing for a plea deal. Reduced sentence in exchange for testimony against Vanessa. Full disclosure of his involvement. Admission of guilt. What's he offering? Patricia pulled up more documents. Complete timeline of the conspiracy, how Vanessa first approached him, what she asked for, how he helped. He claims there were contingency plans. If the insulin didn't work, they had other methods prepared. Grace's breath caught. Other methods, meaning they'd planned to keep trying until she died, until they succeeded. It wasn't one attempt. It was the beginning of an ongoing effort to eliminate her. What other methods? Marlene asked. Her voice was dangerous. He won't say until the plea deal is finalized. But based on what we've found, we believe they considered medication interactions, accidental overdoses during delivery, making it look like pregnancy complications. Grace felt the room spin. They'd planned to kill her during childbirth, during the most vulnerable moment of her life, when she'd be trusting doctors, trusting hospital staff, trusting that she was safe. I want him to get nothing, Grace said. Her voice was ice. No plea deal, no reduced sentence, no reward for cooperation. He helped plan my murder. For money. He gets to face full consequences. Agent Torres nodded. That's your right. But without his testimony, we might not be able to prove the full extent of the conspiracy. There could be others involved. Other hospital staff. Other people who were paid to help. Others. Grace hadn't even considered that. How many people had been part of this? How many had looked the other way? How many had taken money to help murder a pregnant woman? I want to know everyone, Grace said. Everyone who was involved, everyone who knew, everyone who could have stopped it and didn't. I want their names, their faces. I want them all prosecuted. That's what we're working on, Patricia said. But it takes time. Investigation, evidence gathering, building cases. It could be months before we know the full picture. I have months. I have time. Find them all. Raymond placed a hand on Grace's shoulder. Supportive, protective. Whatever you need, whatever it costs. We're not stopping until everyone responsible is in prison. The meeting continued for 2 more hours. More evidence reviewed, more connections explored, more questions raised. By the end, Grace was exhausted, overwhelmed, but also determined. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about systemic failure, about a hospital where staff could be bought, where safety protocols could be circumvented, where a pregnant woman could almost be murdered in her own bed while supposedly under medical care. That had to change. All of it. Grace was going to make sure it changed. After the meeting, Raymond drove Grace back to her apartment. They rode in silence for a while. Then Raymond spoke. You're stronger than I gave you credit for. Grace looked at him. This intimidating billionaire, this man who'd barely acknowledged her existence for 3 years, now looking at her with something like respect, like admiration. I'm not strong, Grace said. I'm just stubborn. There's a difference. Is there? Because from where I sit, they look the same. Grace smiled despite everything. Maybe. I'm proud of you, of how you're handling this, of who you're becoming. Derek never deserved you. I see that now. Thank you. That means more than you know. And this foundation you're building, this patient safety initiative, that's real. That's important. That's going to save lives. That's the goal. Make sure no one else goes through what I went through. You're going to succeed. I'll make sure of it. They arrived at Grace's building. Raymond walked her up, made sure the security team was in place, made sure she was safe, then hugged her. Awkward, but genuine. Call me if you need anything, day or night. I mean it. I will. After he left, Grace collapsed on her couch. Marlene brought her tea, sat beside her, held her hand. You okay? No, but I will be. Damn right you will be. Grace thought about Dr. Allen, about gambling debts and moral bankruptcy, about a man who traded her life for money. She felt rage, but also something else, determination, purpose. I'm not just surviving anymore, Grace said. I'm fighting back. I'm changing things. I'm making sure this never happens again. Hell yes, you are. Grace put her hand on her belly, felt her daughter kick. Strong, healthy, alive. We're going to be okay, baby girl. Better than okay. We're going to change the world. Make it safer. Make it better. For you. For everyone. The baby kicked again. Agreement, or maybe just movement. But Grace chose to believe it was agreement. Chose to believe they were in this together. Grace Morrison, 32 years old, 8 months pregnant, survivor of attempted murder, was done being a victim. She was becoming something else. Something stronger. Something more. She was becoming a force for change. and nothing was going to stop her. Grace went into labor on a Thursday, 3 weeks after moving into her new apartment. Right on schedule, her daughter was punctual. Grace appreciated that. The contractions started at dawn, mild at first, just tightening, discomfort. Grace had timed them, 30 minutes apart, then 20, then 15. By noon, they were 10 minutes apart. Time to go. Marlene drove. Helen and Raymond met them at the hospital. The same hospital where it had happened, where someone had tried to kill her, where Vanessa had added insulin to her IV, where Dr. Allen had provided the information to make it possible. Grace had insisted on returning there. "I'm not letting fear win," she'd told her therapist. "That hospital saved my life. It's where my daughter should be born." The staff treated her like royalty. Private room, best OB team. Dr. Mitchell personally overseeing everything. Security outside the door. No one was taking chances. Not with Grace Morrison. Not after everything that had happened. Labor was long, 14 hours. Grace had expected that. First babies took time. But every minute she thought about how close she'd come to never experiencing this, never holding her daughter, never getting this second chance. Trauma and joy could exist in the same place. Grace understood that now. This hospital had almost killed her. This hospital was giving her life. Both things were true. Both things mattered. Helen held one hand, Marlene held the other. Raymond paced outside. Dr. Mitchell coached her through contractions, through pushing, through the final overwhelming moments when nothing existed except getting this baby out, getting her daughter safely into the world. And then she was there, 6 pounds, 8 ounces, perfect, screaming, angry at being evicted from her warm, comfortable home. Grace laughed through tears, reached for her, held her. "Hi, baby, I'm your mom. Just me, and that's enough." The nurse placed the baby on Grace's chest, skin to skin. Grace counted fingers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Every mother did this, counting what was precious, making sure it was real, making sure she was perfect. The baby opened her eyes, dark blue, unfocused, but looking right at Grace, searching, finding, recognizing maybe, or maybe just seeing light and shadow and the face that would define her world. "Maya," Grace whispered. "Maya, Grace. That's your name." Maya, meaning illusion in Sanskrit, because Grace had thought she knew what her life was, turned out to be an illusion. But from that illusion came this beautiful truth, this perfect daughter, this new beginning. Helen was crying, actually crying, looking at her granddaughter with wonder, with love, with something Grace had never seen in her face before. Softness, vulnerability, genuine emotion. "She's perfect," Helen whispered. "Absolutely perfect." Marlene took photos, dozens of them, Grace holding Maya, Helen holding Maya, the 3 women together, 3 generations, 3 survivors, 3 fighters building something new. Raymond came in after things settled, looked at his granddaughter. His face did something complicated, softened, opened, transformed. He touched Maya's tiny hand. She gripped his finger, held tight. "Hello, little one. I'm your grandfather, and I'm going to make sure you have everything you need. Everything, always." Grace believed him. This man who'd been a distant, intimidating figure was now a devoted grandfather. Maya had that power, the power to transform people, to make them better versions of themselves. The next few hours were a blur. Nurses teaching Grace to breastfeed, Maya latching perfectly, doctors checking vitals. Everything perfect, everything normal, everything exactly as it should be. Grace's mother called from Florida, cried, promised to visit next week. Grace's sister sent flowers. Friends from nursing school sent cards. The world celebrated this baby, this new life, this victory over death. Because that's what Maya was, a victory, a triumph, proof that Grace had survived, had won, had built something beautiful from ruins. That night, Grace held Maya in her hospital bed, just the 2 of them, quiet, peaceful. Maya slept. Tiny chest rising and falling, perfect nose, perfect chin, perfect everything. You shouldn't exist, Grace whispered. Someone tried to make sure you didn't, but you do. You're here. You're real. You're mine, and I'm going to protect you, always. Nothing is ever going to hurt you. Not while I'm breathing. She meant it, every word. Grace would burn the world down before she let anyone hurt her daughter. Would fight anyone, would destroy anyone. Maternal love was fierce, protective, unlimited. Grace thought about Derek, in prison, missing this, missing his daughter's birth, his daughter's first cry, his daughter's first moments. He'd chosen Vanessa over this, chosen an affair over being here. That was his loss, his failure, his tragedy. But it wasn't Grace's tragedy anymore. It was freedom, relief. The knowledge that she didn't have to co-parent with the man who tried to have her killed, didn't have to share custody, didn't have to see him ever again. Maya was hers, completely, legally, permanently. No one could take her away. No one could claim rights. It was just the two of them. And that was perfect. Grace dozed, woke, dozed again. Maya woke every 2 hours to eat. Grace fed her, changed her, held her, fell in love over and over with each tiny gesture, each small sound, each perfect moment. Dr. Mitchell visited in the morning, checked them both. You're doing great. Maya is healthy. You are recovering well. Barring any complications, you can go home tomorrow. Home. Grace's new apartment, her fresh start, bringing Maya there, beginning their life together. The thought was overwhelming, terrifying, exciting. All at once. I'm scared, Grace admitted. What if I do it wrong? What if I mess up? What if I'm not enough? Dr. Mitchell smiled. The kind of smile that came from years of delivering babies and hearing the same fears from hundreds of mothers. Every new mom feels that way, but you know what? You'll figure it out. You'll make mistakes. You'll learn. You'll adapt. That's what parenting is. One day at a time, one moment at a time, trusting yourself to do your best. What if my best isn't enough? It will be, because your best comes from love, and love is always enough. Grace wanted to believe that, tried to believe it. Maya stirred, made a small noise. Grace picked her up, held her close, and in that moment, it felt true. Love was enough, had to be enough. Patricia Brennan visited that afternoon, brought news. Dr. Allen took the plea deal. He's testifying against everyone involved. So far, we've identified 2 nurses who took money to look the other way, 1 security guard who disabled cameras, 3 pharmaceutical reps who provided supplies. It's bigger than we thought. Grace held Maya tighter. How many people were trying to kill me? Not trying, enabling. There's a difference. Most of them didn't know what Vanessa was planning. They just took money to bend rules, to ignore protocols, to not ask questions. They're guilty of negligence, of greed, but not necessarily murder. That doesn't make me feel better. I know, but it does mean we can shut down this network. Make sure it never happens again. Your foundation is already working with hospital administration. New protocols, better oversight, background checks. It's changing because of you. Grace looked down at Maya, sleeping peacefully, unaware that her mother's near murder was changing hospital safety across the country, that her existence was making the world better, safer, more just. I want to do more, Grace said. The foundation is good, but I want to speak, to share my story, to make sure other women know the signs, know when to trust their instincts, know when to fight back. You want to go public? Yes, completely public. I want people to know what happened, how it happened, why it happened. I want Derek and Vanessa and Dr. Allen to be case studies, warnings, examples of what not to do, what not to ignore, what not to excuse. Patricia nodded slowly. That's brave, but it's also hard. People will judge, will have opinions, will say you should have seen the signs sooner. Let them. I know the truth. I know I did my best. I know I survived. That's what matters. Then I'll help you. We'll do this right. Controlled narrative. Interviews with vetted journalists. Your story told your way. Grace felt something shift. Not just survival anymore. Purpose, mission, calling. She wasn't just a victim who'd gotten lucky. She was a survivor with a platform, with resources, with a voice that could reach people, help people, save people. Let's change the world, Grace said. For Maya, for me, for every woman who's ever been betrayed, every patient who's ever been vulnerable, every person who's ever had to rebuild from ashes. Let's show them it's possible. Deal. After Patricia left, Grace walked to the window, held Maya, looked out at the hospital grounds. The same view she'd had from her room 4 months ago, when she'd almost died, when her world had fallen apart, when everything had seemed hopeless. But she'd survived, she'd fought back, she'd won, and now she was holding her daughter, looking at a future she'd almost never had, a life she'd almost been denied. See that, Maya? Grace whispered. That's where it happened, where someone tried to end us. But we're still here, still alive, still fighting, and we're going to make sure no one else goes through what we did. Maya yawned, tiny, perfect yawn, completely unconcerned with hospitals and attempted murder and changing the world. Just a baby, just alive, just perfect. Grace kissed her daughter's head. I love you, more than I knew I could love anyone. You saved me, just by existing, just by being you. Thank you for that. They stood there together, mother and daughter, survivors, victors, looking out at a world that had tried to destroy them and failed. Grace Morrison, 32 years old, new mother, survivor of attempted murder, felt something she hadn't felt in months. Hope, real hope. Not just survival, but joy, possibility, future. She was going to be okay. They were going to be okay. Better than okay. They were going to thrive. 6 months later, Grace stood in a conference room at Grace Memorial Hospital, Maya strapped to her chest in a carrier. 6 months old, healthy, happy, babbling at anyone who'd listen, completely unaware that she was about to change hospital policy across 6 states. The Grace Morrison Foundation for Hospital Patient Safety was hosting its first major conference. 200 hospital administrators attending, security experts, patient advocates, lawyers, journalists, everyone who mattered in hospital safety. Grace was the keynote speaker. She'd prepared for this, worked with a speaking coach, practiced in front of mirrors and friends and anyone who'd listen. She'd written and rewritten her speech, made sure every word counted, every detail mattered. She wasn't nervous, not exactly, but she felt the weight of responsibility. These people were here to learn from her suffering, to take her nightmare and turn it into policy, into protocol, into protection for future patients. That was power, real power, not money or influence or connections, but the power to transform pain into purpose, to make her daughter grew up in a world that was safer because of what Grace had survived. Raymond found her backstage. You ready? As ready as I'll ever be. You're going to be magnificent. I'm going to be honest. That's all I can promise. That's why you'll be magnificent. Helen was there too, holding a diaper bag, backup bottles. Everything Maya might need. She'd become the grandmother Grace had always wished for. Present, involved, loving fiercely. She just ate, Helen said. So you've got at least an hour before she gets fussy. But I'll be right here if you need me. Thank you for everything. Thank you for letting me be part of this, part of her life. I don't deserve it, but I'm grateful anyway. Marlene appeared with coffee. Liquid courage. You're going to kill it up there. Grace sipped the coffee, let the warmth ground her, center her, remind her why she was doing this. The conference room filled, hospital administrators in suits, taking seats, checking phones, talking amongst themselves. They looked busy, important, skeptical, like they'd seen it all before, like one woman's story wouldn't change anything. Grace was about to prove them wrong. The moderator introduced her, listed her credentials: former pediatric nurse, survivor of attempted murder, founder of the Grace Morrison Foundation, mother, advocate, voice for patient safety. Grace took the stage, Maya on her chest, the ultimate visual. living proof that survival was possible, that strength could emerge from suffering, that mothers would fight for their children with everything they had. "This is Maya," Grace began. "She's 6 months old. She loves sweet potatoes, hates tummy time, and she shouldn't exist. Someone tried very hard to make sure she didn't. Today I'm going to tell you exactly how that happened and exactly how we're going to make sure it never happens again." The room went silent. Phones disappeared. Attention focused. Grace had them. Now she had to keep them. She told her story, all of it. The seizure, the insulin, the affair, Derek's betrayal, Vanessa's obsession, Dr. Allen's conspiracy, the security failures, the protocol gaps, the financial incentives that had corrupted hospital staff. She didn't dramatize, didn't need to. The truth was dramatic enough. A pregnant woman almost murdered in her hospital bed, while monitors beeped, while nurses made rounds, while security cameras captured everything. "The question isn't, how did this happen to me?" Grace said. "The question is, how many other patients are vulnerable right now? How many hospitals have gaps in their security? How many staff members can be bribed? How many protocols can be circumvented?" She pulled up slides, statistics, data her foundation had gathered, interviews with security experts, analysis of hospital protocols across the country. 42% of hospitals have inadequate visitor access controls. 67% rely on visual ID badges that can be easily counterfeited. 83% have patient record systems that don't track unauthorized access attempts. These aren't just numbers. These are vulnerabilities. These are open invitations for the next Vanessa Caldwell, the next Dr. Allen, the next person who decides a patient's life is worth less than money or obsession or convenience. The administrators shifted in their seats, uncomfortable, some defensive, some thoughtful, some already taking notes. Good. Grace needed them uncomfortable, needed them questioning, needed them motivated to change. "I'm not here to blame anyone," Grace continued. "I'm here to fix something. We've developed a comprehensive safety protocol, updated visitor management systems, enhanced record access monitoring, staff background checks, ongoing security training. It's all available, free, through the foundation. All you have to do is implement it." She walked them through the protocol, step by step, system by system. Maya babbled occasionally, perfect comic relief, perfect reminder of what was at stake. Not abstract policy, not bureaucratic requirements, but real lives, real babies, real futures. "Some of you are thinking this is expensive," Grace said, "that your hospitals can't afford it. Let me tell you what's expensive. Lawsuits, settlements, reputation damage, lives destroyed. That's expensive. This protocol, it's an investment in safety, in trust, in making sure your patients survive their hospital stays." She paused, let the words sink in, then delivered the final point, the one that mattered most. "I was a nurse. I worked in hospitals for 10 years. I trusted that hospitals were safe, that staff were vetted, that protocols protected patients. I was wrong. And I almost died because of that misplaced trust. Your patients trust you the same way. They trust that when they're unconscious, when they're vulnerable, when they're fighting for their lives, you're protecting them. Are you?" Silence. Complete silence. Grace had them, really had them. Now came the ask, the commitment, the moment that would determine if this conference meant anything. "I'm asking you to sign a pledge today, a commitment to implement these protocols within 6 months, to audit your security, to close the gaps, to protect your patients. Some of you will sign because it's right. Some will sign because your lawyers will insist. Some will sign because you're afraid of becoming the next headline. I don't care why you sign, I just care that you do, because the next Grace Morrison shouldn't have to survive attempted murder to get your attention." Grace stepped back, let the words echo. Maya chose that moment to grab Grace's necklace, yank it, babble happily. The room softened, smiled, remembered humanity. The moderator returned. "Questions?" Hands shot up, dozens of them. Grace spent the next hour answering, explaining, defending, justifying. Some administrators were skeptical, some were dismissive, but most were engaged, interested, motivated. By the end of the session, over 100 hospital administrators had signed the pledge, committed to implementing the safety protocols, to auditing their systems, to protecting their patients. It wasn't everyone, but it was a start, a real start. Change happening because Grace had refused to stay silent, had refused to let her suffering be meaningless. After the conference, Grace found a quiet corner, sat with Maya, nursed her, let exhaustion wash over her. She'd done it, actually done it, turned trauma into advocacy, pain into policy, suffering into salvation for future patients. Helen brought water, sat beside her as, "You were incredible, powerful, authentic." They couldn't look away. Good, that was the goal. Raymond is already fielding calls, hospitals requesting consultations, media wanting interviews. You've started something, something big. Grace looked down at Maya, nursing contentedly, unaware that her mother had just changed hospital policy across multiple states, that her existence had inspired safety protocols that would protect thousands of patients. "I did this for her," Grace said, "so she grows up in a world that's safer, better, more just. You did it for everyone, for every patient, every family, every person who's ever been vulnerable. You're a hero, Grace." "I'm not a hero, I'm just stubborn. There's a difference." Helen laughed. "Whatever you want to call it, you're changing lives, saving lives. That matters." A young woman approached, maybe 25, pregnant, nervous. "Excuse me, Grace Morrison?" "Yes?" "I saw your speech. I'm leaving my husband. He's been controlling, isolating me. I've been making excuses, but watching you, hearing your story, I realized I can't keep lying to myself. I have to protect my baby, even if it's hard, even if it's scary." Grace's eyes filled with tears. "You can do this. You're strong enough. There are resources, shelters, lawyers, support systems. You don't have to do it alone." She gave the woman her foundation's card, contact information for domestic violence resources, legal aid, counseling. Everything Grace wished she'd known earlier. "Thank you," the woman whispered. "I thought I was alone." "You're not. You never were." The woman left. Grace watched her go, thought about how many others were out there, making excuses for bad partners, ignoring red flags, telling themselves things would get better, all of them needing permission to leave, permission to fight back, permission to choose themselves. That's what Grace could give them. Not just safety protocols, but permission. Example, proof that you could survive betrayal, could rebuild from ruins, could become stronger through suffering. Marlene found Grace in the hospital cafe an hour later, sitting alone, Maya asleep in her carrier, coffee cold, lost in thought. "There you are. Everyone's looking for you. You're the woman of the hour." "I needed a minute to process, to breathe." "That was incredible what you did up there. You changed minds, changed policy, changed lives." "I hope so." "You did. I watched it happen. Saw the faces change from skeptical to convinced. Saw them start taking notes. Saw them commit. That's power, Grace, real power." Grace thought about that. Power. She'd never wanted power, had never pursued it, had just wanted a safe pregnancy, a healthy baby, a normal life. But normal was gone, destroyed by insulin and betrayal and near death. What had emerged from the ashes was something else, someone else. Grace Morrison wasn't just a survivor anymore. She was an advocate, a voice, a force for change. "I'm scared," Grace admitted, "that I'll fail, that the protocols won't work, that someone else will be attacked anyway, that all of this will be meaningless." It won't be meaningless. Even if you save one life, it matters. Even if you prevent one attack, it matters. You're doing something. That's more than most people ever do. Grace nodded, tried to believe it. Maya stirred, woke up, looked at Grace with those big dark eyes, smiled, her first real smile. Not gas, not reflex, real recognition, real joy. Hi, baby. Did you have a good nap? Maya babbled, reached for Grace's face, grabbed her nose, laughed. The best sound in the world. Pure joy, pure innocence, pure love. She's proud of you, Marlene said. I can tell. She's 6 months old. She doesn't know what I did. Doesn't matter. She knows you're her mom, that you fight for her, that you do anything to protect her. That's what matters. Grace stood, adjusted Maya's carrier. Let's go home. I'm done being the woman of the hour. I just want to be Maya's mom. Best job in the world. They walked through the hospital together, the same halls where Grace had almost died, where she'd seized, where insulin had tried to kill her, where everything had fallen apart, but also where everything had been saved, where alarms had sounded, where nurses had responded, where doctors had fought to keep her alive, where Grace had survived against all odds, trauma and joy, both in the same place, both real, both permanent. Grace passed room 316, her old room. Someone else was in there now, another patient, another family, another story. She hoped theirs had a happy ending, hoped they felt safe, protected, hoped the new protocols worked. She stopped at the hospital exit, looked back. This building held so much pain, so much fear, so much loss, but also so much growth, so much transformation, so much power. Thank you, Grace whispered, for saving me, for giving me a second chance, for making me stronger. Then she stepped through the doors into sunlight. Raymond and Helen were waiting with the car, ready to drive Grace and Maya home, to their apartment, to their life, to their future. Grace looked at the people around her. Marlene, Raymond, Helen. Patricia had become a friend. Dr. Mitchell checked on her regularly. Claire managed the foundation with brilliant efficiency. Dr. Webb served as security advisor. Her life had exploded, destroyed completely. And from the ruins, something new had emerged. Not just survival, not just recovery, but transformation, growth, power. I'm proud of you, Raymond said as they drove, of everything you've accomplished, everything you've become. Thank you for believing in me, for supporting me, for being the grandfather Maya needs, and the father-in-law you deserved. Better late than never. Grace smiled. Much better. They arrived at her apartment building. Home, safety, peace. Grace carried Maya inside. Marlene had moved out 3 months ago, back to her own place, but she visited constantly, practically lived there anyway. Grace walked to Maya's nursery, the room she'd imagined months ago. Now real. Crib, rocking chair, soft yellow walls, books on shelves, stuffed animals everywhere. A life, a future, a home. She changed Maya's diaper, fed her, played with her. Just normal mom things, the best things, the things she'd almost been denied. That evening, Grace sat in the rocking chair, Maya nursing, both of them peaceful, content, safe. She thought about the past year, the betrayal, the murder attempt, the divorce, the trials, the foundation, the conference. So much had happened, so much had changed. Grace wasn't the same person who'd married Derek, wasn't the same woman who'd checked into that hospital, wasn't the same naive, trusting person who'd ignored red flags. She was harder now, wiser, stronger, more careful, but also more authentic, more real, more herself. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you becomes the thing that saves you, Grace whispered to Maya. I didn't just survive. I became stronger, became wiser, became the mother you need, became the advocate other patients need, became someone I'm proud to be. Maya's eyes drifted closed. Full belly, warm mom, safe home. Everything a baby needed. Everything Grace had fought to provide. Grace looked out the window, city lights twinkling, life continuing, the world turning, and she was part of it. Not just surviving, thriving, building, creating, making a difference. She thought about Derek, in prison for another 14 years. Did he think about Maya? Did he regret his choices? Did he understand what he'd lost? Grace didn't know, didn't care. He was her past, Maya was her future, and the future was bright, full of possibility, full of hope, full of love. Grace Morrison, 33 years old, mother, survivor, advocate, sat in her daughter's nursery and felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Complete peace, not happiness exactly. Peace was better, deeper, more permanent. She'd survived. She'd fought back. She'd won. Not just legally, not just financially, but personally, internally. She'd become the person she was always meant to be. Strong, authentic, uncompromising, real. And Maya would grow up seeing that, learning from that, understanding that survival wasn't just endurance, it was transformation, growth, becoming more than you were, becoming who you needed to be. I love you, Maya Grace, Grace whispered. Thank you for saving me. Thank you for giving me a reason to fight. Thank you for being exactly who you are. Maya slept on, peaceful, perfect, unaware that she'd changed the world just by existing, that her mother's love had transformed pain into purpose, that their story would help protect thousands of future patients. Grace stood, placed Maya gently in her crib, covered her with a soft blanket, turned on the baby monitor, and walked to her own room. She lay in bed, alone but not lonely, not anymore. She had Maya, had her family, had her foundation, had her purpose. That was more than enough. That was everything. Grace closed her eyes, let sleep come, and dreamed of the future, of Maya growing up strong and brave, of hospitals becoming safer, of women finding the courage to leave bad situations, of a world where betrayal and attempted murder were met with justice and transformation. She dreamed of hope and healing and second chances and lives rebuilt from ashes and mothers who fought for their daughters with everything they had. She dreamed of becoming, of transformation, of power that came not from money or influence, but from surviving, from refusing to stay silent, from turning pain into purpose. Grace Morrison had survived attempted murder, had divorced her betraying husband, had rebuilt her entire life, had created a foundation that was changing hospital safety across the country, had become a mother, an advocate, a force for good. She hadn't just survived, she'd become. And that was the ultimate victory, the ultimate justice, the ultimate triumph. Grace Morrison, survivor, mother, advocate, slept peacefully in her own bed in her own home with her daughter safe in the next room. And the future stretched before them, bright, open, full of possibility. They'd made it, against all odds, through betrayal and attempted murder and pain and fear. They'd made it to the other side, and the other side was beautiful. So that's my story, from hospital bed to courtroom to advocate, from victim to survivor to someone who changed hospital safety protocols across 6 states. If this story resonated with you, if it made you think twice about ignoring red flags, if it gave you hope that you can survive your own nightmare and come out stronger on the other side, do me a favor. Hit that like button. It tells me these stories matter, that survival stories need to be told. Drop a comment below. Tell me your thoughts, your own story, what you learned. I read every single comment, and your words mean more than you know. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. That woman making excuses for her partner's behavior. That friend ignoring obvious signs. That person who thinks they're trapped with no way out. Send them this story. Show them survival is possible. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel, because I'm not done telling stories. I'm not done fighting for patient safety. I'm not done showing people that betrayal doesn't have to destroy you. It can transform you. My daughter Maya is almost 1 year old now. She's healthy, happy, thriving. She'll never remember the night someone tried to prevent her from existing. But she'll grow up knowing her mother fought for her. And that's the legacy I'm building. One story, one protocol, one saved life at a time. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Thank you for believing that one woman's voice can change the world. Now go be strong, be brave. Be the person who fights back. And never, ever ignore your instincts. They might just save your life. I'll see you in the next one.